Chicago, don't go to Peoria. I would avoid big cities today because today is supposed to be some sort of global jihadist day, and that's what the Hamas terrorists are calling for. They want everybody in America to cause some civil unrest. So the police are equipping themselves across the country today, and they're preparing for that civil unrest. And I just pray for Israel, and the numbers don't lie, folks. I told you yesterday, and anytime somebody says, well, Israel shouldn't be occupying them, Israel shouldn't be oppressing them because they're brown or whatever, shoot back. And I'm gonna get I'm gonna give you some numbers and just jot these down. Israel is only 1/6 of 1% of the land there. That's all they've got. 1/6 of 1% of the land there in the Middle East. The rest, 99.9% of that land, is for 300 million Arabs, Muslims. A lot of those Arabs and Muslims want the Jewish people dead simply because they are Jewish. That's it. It's just anti Semitism. And I know that's hard for you to grasp as an American because, I'm out on the Constitution Trail yesterday. Everybody's walking their dogs. Of course, some of them have masks on. And I'm like, we probably differ when it comes to politics. But at the end of the day, American culture, we have dogs, we have birthday parties, we celebrate marriage, we celebrate the birth of children. We like to go to the movies. That's what we do here in America. But I'm sorry, these Hamas extremist terrorists, because that's what they are. They're not freedom fighters. They're not militant. They're not doing anything over there for a just cause. They are crazy and they are evil. They are vessels for evil. That's it. They don't think like you and me. They celebrate death. They care more about death than they do life. And that's just the way they are. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. And there's 300 million of them, and there's only 8 million Israelis. Do the math. Look at the numbers. Who's really the people who are oppressed? And I've told you before that the Israelis, they have offered land as a peace offering. They've said, hey, here's offer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The jihadists, the Hamas, Iranians, Palestinians. I told you yesterday I had a Jewish activist on. She was so great. Her name's Justine Murray, and she's a TPUSA ambassador. I didn't even know this. Palestinians, the Hebrew word for invaders are Palestinians. That's all they are. They're invaders, and they've built tunnels underground to try to get into Jewish homes and Jewish infrastructure, and they go under the ground and through these tunnels to capture Israeli teenagers and execute them. They dream of ways to destroy the Jewish people. We stand behind Israel. I'm praying for them. Good morning. I didn't expect to open with that, but I just was, warning you. This is your warning. Today, there could be some civil unrest. I don't anticipate it happening in Bloomington Normal, but I'm going to be wearing my head on a swivel. Okay, I don't want to risk anything. There's a global jihadist day, so just stay safe out there. If you've got a concealed carry, make sure you're loaded up. It's it could get rough out there. I know LAPD, they're equipping themselves. They're getting a lot of officers out there. They're preparing for this global jihadist day. We've got New York police preparing. I'm sure the Chicago police uh, will not be preparing because there's probably no Chicago police left. They left that war zone a long time ago. All right. I do want to get to DYLAN Mulvaney. We've got so much to get to today. DYLAN Mulvaney, he wins Woman of the Year award. Yes, that DYLAN Mulvaney, the patriarchy strikes again. Folks, this is the actual patriarchy. We've got men winning Woman of the Year awards when they're not even women for more than like 2 years. This guy hasn't even been a woman for 2 years, and he got Woman of the Year. Next, I got to tell you about Stop Petro Pete. This is pretty funny. So there were a bunch of screaming climate protesters, and they were screaming, "Stop Petro Pete! Stop Petro Pete!" They're talking about Pete Buttigieg, and they chased him. They chased him from the event, which I love it when progressives eat their own. I think it's hilarious. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and you won't believe it. This woman deemed a moderate risk. Moderate risk is not a mild risk, it's a moderate risk, but she was deemed a moderate risk. Get this, after beating a man with a metal pole. So she beats a man with a metal pole and she kills this mother of 8. So this mother, she has 8 children. She kills the mother and then she beats the man. And guess what? She's out on bail. She's out without bail. No cash bail. She's out. I'll tell you about her here coming up in just a little bit. But first, the patriarchy. It's striking again. This gay magazine in the UK awarded their first ever Woman of the Year award to a man. So this is the first time that they've done it. It's called Attitude, is this gay magazine. It's literally just about gay people. I don't know why sexual orientation is like content that you want to read about, but I guess there's an audience out there for it. This Attitude magazine, he's been honored by this magazine after only being a woman for not even 2 years. He's been a so-called woman, not really. He'll never be a woman, but he's been masquerading as a woman and pretending to be a woman for a little over a year. Let's take a listen. And folks, as always, this is the Morning Buzz. You guys can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can always see the clips that I play and be a part of the show by texting in or commenting on the stream. I'm live streaming right now, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Let's take a listen here to DYLAN Mulvaney getting his Woman of the Year award.
The Woman of the Year award, supported by Virgin Atlantic, goes to DYLAN Mulvaney.
Hello, London! I am so honored to be here with you all tonight. And, some see me as the Woman of the Year. Some see me as a woman of a year and some change, as I only publicly came out online 560 days ago. And some people don't see me as a woman at all.
Yep. Gee, I wonder why.
I know, which is why receiving this honor from a queer publication like Attitude means so much more to me. Because here's what I've realized. You ready? Okay. So no matter how hard I try, or what I wear, or what I say, or what surgeries I get, I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood by those hateful people's standards. But as long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, I'm gonna be okay.
The most shallow, misogynistic thing I think I've ever heard. Womanhood has nothing to do with the clothes you wear or the way you speak. I'm sorry, this man does nothing but make a mockery of women. And I'm sick of pretending like this is okay. It's misogynistic. Except truth is subjective, right? It's not subjective. There, DYLAN Mulvaney. He thinks that truth is subjective. It's not. You cannot have your truth. There's only the truth. There's one truth. That's it. There's an objective truth. And sorry, but the truth is, DYLAN Mulvaney, you are a man. Probably a gay man, but that's besides the point here. A cross-dresser who also, by the way, if you guys didn't know, he was the ambassador for Bud Light. It caused them to lose tens of millions of dollars and no longer be the #1 beer in America. So This cross-dresser, he mentioned the Bud Light campaign in his speech. I'm not gonna play the rest of it for you. I'm gonna try to um, save you. But he also mentioned that London is his safe space, and apparently he doesn't like America, and he prefers London because London is a safe space for him. He spouted a bunch of nonsense, but I'm going to spare you the rest of the obnoxious details. But if you remember, this man's claim to fame was his cringy day of girlhood TikTok videos. So every day he would post, "Hey, this is, day number 560 of being a girl." And, uh, I mean, if you if these videos, and I'm gonna play one here for you. These videos consist of him really, like, exaggerating what he believes are characteristic traits of women. These videos just prove that his mental delusion does not come a place of genuine dysphoria. I think that there are people out there who actually have genuine, dysphoria. I really do. But this guy, I think he puts out these misogynistic traits of what he thinks a woman is because he actually hates women. Okay, he claims that these are characteristics that make you feminine, and they're just not. So this is one of his very first TikTok videos that created his fame. And we've got to take a listen to it. You won't believe it. I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine, just for a moment, close your eyes and don't look at, Dylan Mulvaney as, this trans woman or this man who's pretending to be a woman. Just think about this as like a parody bit. Like, this guy is a straight man and he's saying these things as a joke. Let's take a listen.
Day one of being a girl, and I have already cried 3 times. I wrote a scathing email that I did not send. I ordered dresses online that I couldn't afford. And then when someone asked me how I was, I said, I'm fine, when I wasn't fine. So. How'd I do, ladies? Good? Girl power.
It's just so terrible. The exaggeration is so extreme that it's hard to tell whether or not he was a troll who was, making trans satire. And, I love how his nails are painted, so you'll never believe this. I was out at a restaurant yesterday with my folks, and my folks, I grew up in a very rural area, very conservative type area. We're all a bunch of, corn farmers, and we were out to dinner, and there were two trans women who served us. There was a host who was a trans type man, I guess, or at least a very feminine looking man. Um, and he sat us down, and my dad goes, "Was that a woman or was that a man?" And I go, "I don't know." And then we just order our food. Then another man comes by. He wasn't our server, but he took our plates away and he looked at my nails, and my nails are purple. I love painting my nails. It's a hobby. Right. And my nails are purple. He goes, "I love your purple nails." He goes, "Look at mine." And then he shows me his glittery, sparkly nails. He goes, "I'm gonna get that color next." And I mean, I just didn't even know how to react. Here's this guy, he's got to be at least 6'3", maybe a couple hundred, a huge guy. And he's acting like one of the girls. And I was just so confused by it. And, I don't get excited about my nails. I just kind of, get them done, and, I receive compliments, and women, they don't like go crazy. It's not like, "Oh my gosh, I love your nails." That's not how we react. We'll give a compliment, and then usually what happens with women exchanges. This is how I know he was masquerading as a woman, because a typical exchange with another woman about your nails would go, "Oh, I like your nails. Where'd you get them done?" Like, it's, "Hey, where'd you get those done? I like them, and that's gonna be my next place because you're, a woman, she's thinking about being cost effective, being conservative, and, hey, I like getting my nails done, but I wanna be cost effective. Those look nice. They look like they might last." You're thinking about these things, and then the first thing you ask is, "Where do you get them done?" Not, "Oh, I'm gonna get that color next." So it was incredible. My dad was like, goes, "Gosh, I'm so sorry you live here." And I go, I know." But the way this guy talks in general is just this exaggerated form, Dylan Mulvaney, of niceness. And honestly, it just makes your skin crawl because nobody acts that way. Straight, gay, man, woman, nobody acts that way. Like extreme niceness, like over exaggerated niceness. So he parades around Dylan Mulvaney, cosplays as a woman, and to be honest with you, he just comes off as like a one-dimensional cartoon. Like that when I see Dylan Mulvaney, I don't even think that this guy is like a real human. Nobody acts that way and isn't crazy. Think about the average exchanges you have with human beings on a daily basis. I will never have somebody get into my face and say, "Oh my gosh, I love your nails. I'm getting that color next." No, 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 no. Please do not. We are not friends. You're taking my plates away from my dinner table. It's wild. But another creepy thing about this guy and how I know it's not authentic gender dysphoria is that he calls himself a girl, even though he's a fully grown adult. Imagine a trans man, a woman who's masquerading as a man, who is an adult and she refers to herself as a boy. Odd, right? Even if you could switch genders, which you cannot, but if you could, it doesn't allow for grown adults to be capable or to be able to call themselves like little girl or little boy. It's odd. Uh, he's nothing more than a man who makes a mockery of women. Also, I think it's funny how there's no man who gets like man of the year awards. There's no trans men who gets man of the award. This is just about men taking over women's spaces, and this is the actual patriarchy. Like, where are all the feminists at? The point is, it's been 560 days, and Dylan Mulvaney is still a girl. Is still not a girl. He's still a man. All right, I've got to take a quick break. But if you want to see me live in studio, that's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Also, I do want to talk about Petro Pete. Petro Pete. Stop Petro Pete. So a bunch of climate activists, they came to this event that Pete Buttigieg was at, and they chased him out of the event. I love when progressives eat their own. I think that's pretty funny. That's next on The Buzz. See me live on the stream. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate it. Yes. Ladies, if you're watching, when you have exchanges with women about your nails, I just don't, there's not this exaggeration of being overly nice. Okay. Nobody talks that way. That's like a one-dimensional cartoon character. So last night I'm sitting there dining with my folks and we're, sitting at the dinner table and this guy comes up. He's about 6'2", 6'3". He's huge. He's got sparkly nails, and he sees my nails, and he says, "I want to get purple next." And that's just not the way women talk. That's how I knew he was masquerading as a woman, because when I come into contact with women who like my nails, a lot of times the first thing out of their mouth is, "Where'd you go?" And they don't just get in my face and they're like, "Ah, your nails, I can't believe how they're the best. Look at mine." That's typically not the way women react with each other. They'll say, "Oh my gosh, I love your nails. Where do you go?" And like it's very it's straight and to the point because we're all about trying different new nail places, what's the best one, because it's an expense and we're constantly thinking about cutting down our expense and getting the most bang for our buck. Right? That's when it comes to nails, we know how expensive it is and we get it and we're like, yeah, you have like a thing, right, where you have to get your nails done. Me too. Where do you go get your nails done? So yeah, it was very odd. There were a couple of trans men that would trans women. I don't know what you call them. They were men masquerading as women, and they waited on us last night. My dad, he goes, "There's two of them," and he goes, "In all of my life, I have never seen that." And I was like, "It's all right, Dad. It's all right." Ryan McKenzie, I love it. Why do men keep winning Women of the Year. This is why we're going to lose wars. Too busy confusing gender and arguing over race, while other countries are figuring out how to attack us. Yeah, I don't know how they I don't know why they haven't attacked us yet. I don't think we would win, quite frankly. I mean, the United States, it's amazing, and I'm not going to sit here and rip on the military. I think the men and women, there are great men and women in the military, but as I've told you several times, the recruiting is abysmal. Like they are not meeting those numbers, and we do not have a fully staffed military at all. They're missing the recruiting marks. So um, with the threats from Hamas, with the threats from uh, Russia, Ukraine, this conflict there, it worries me that we are so caught up in this gender and the race and the culture part of it that we are forgetting, hey, we have serious foreign policy issues going on. We have serious foreign affairs that we need to tend to. Um, and we have global conflict right now. China. I mean, China's knocking on our door. That's actually what I'm going to be talking about here in just a couple of minutes. We have companies being paid for via state taxpayer dollars, federal taxpayer dollars. They're coming to Illinois, Michigan, Goshen, this company. They aren't just CCP backed, this company. They are the CCP because in their bylaws, they actually detail out that they are supposed to serve the Chinese Communist Party at all costs. Like that's what it says in their bylaws. So Goshen is the company I'm talking about. It's the electric vehicle battery maker. And we're bringing all those companies over here to the United States, and we're relying on them for electric vehicles. I mean, we're looking to phase out gas-powered vehicles by 2030, I think it is. The Biden administration wants to phase those out. And what? Are we going to rely on Goshen and electric vehicle battery makers for our transportation? And I mean, it's amazing. The Chicago Tribune, this one is about the Chicago Tribune, the story about Goshen, because they have gotten behind Governor J.B. Pritzker and they have received their marching orders. And now what they are doing is really just spewing out the same talking points that Governor JB does, the Tribune. And I've got some numbers for you that will just drop your jaw and how many times they refer to people as far right in comparison to how many people they refer to as far left in their articles. So Wire Points did the write up. I'm very excited to share it with you. Goshen, there's just questions that these Mantino residents have and objections to this. I mean, very legitimate questions like, is our fire station, is our firefighters, are they going to be able to put out a fire if a lithium battery catches on fire? Because that's not an easy fire to put out. Do we have the infrastructure to keep this Goshen company here in Mantino? And they're just asking very basic, very simple questions. And Governor J.B. Pritzker just blanket statement, you're xenophobe because you're objecting. No, I just have concerns. We're going to talk about it here on the other side. How in the world does Dylan win Woman of the Year? This is a complete clown world. Yes, you'd be right. You can go ahead, comment on the YouTube live stream. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, and you're so right. This is just a clown world we're living in. The guy makes a mockery of women. He hasn't even been a woman for 2 years, and somehow he manages to get Woman of the Year. This Attitude magazine named him Woman of the Year, and it's just disturbing. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Pete Buttigieg, and I promise we're going to get to that. But first, I do want to hit a couple of local things. First, as you've heard in the newscast, Randy Knapp, is now the County Board District 5 board member. He's a County Board District 5 board member, Randall Knapp. Now, there were a few other applicants. We had Chad Burke, David Paul Blumenshine, and Kathy Woods. So Randall Knapp has been appointed to the McLean County Board to represent the District 5. He replaces John McIntyre. John McIntyre resigned abruptly in September due to health reasons. Now, this is an incredible. It is pretty incredible. Ben Matthews, who, mind you, he uh, far left guy. I guess does this thing for the Illinois Education Association. He's with the teachers union. He shows up to the McLean County Board meeting during public comment, and he gave some reasons why he thought David Paul Blumenshine, who is a Cities 92.9 host here. I want to be fully transparent with you. Yes, I think that David Paul would have made the best choice. I mean, I just do. I know him very well, and I mean, I just think he would have made the best choice. Catherine Metzger told Cities 92.9, Kevin Woodard was there and asked her the question if, considering how if she considered how Democrats would react and if that's what led her to this nomination. And she said, yes, absolutely. That is part of how I determined my nomination. Um, getting the Democrats' reaction and so Kevin Woodard asked Metzger if considering how Democrats would react to her nomination to fill the District 5 vacancy was a part of her calculations in nominating Knapp. And that she said, yes, absolutely. And she goes, we want to make sure that we have candidates that can work across the aisle. That's what Catherine Metzger said. I'm going to get to that here in just a second, but I do want to play Ben Matthews because he just was in public comment and he was like, he was losing his marbles, to just put it, like, lightly, I guess. Ben Matthews is a leftist, and he was just losing his mind. He was so upset that David Paul Blumenshine and Chad Burke, how dare they even file for the application? How dare they even be applicants? Okay, so he spoke at public comment. We're going to get to that here. And folks, you can always see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
On to appearances by the members of the public and county employees in reference to an agenda item, and we have one individual, Mr. Matthews. You will have 3 minutes.
Okay, so he starts his public comment. I'm going to fast forward a little bit and get
and an
to the
appointment
good
to fill the vacancy subject to the board's approval. 4 candidates applied. 2 of them should cause all of us concern. David Paul Blumenshine spearheaded a Stop the Steal trip to Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021, leading a bus full of our neighbors to the nation's capital in support of the former president's claim the election had been stolen from him. Blumenshine has not apologized for his participation, nor acknowledged the reality of what occurred that day, and he continues to spout various spurious claims on the conservative radio station which sponsored the trip. Another applicant, Chad Burke, said the comments and conspiracy theories that he shared in a recent interview with that same radio station were based on him, quote, going off of what was said on the radio. And when you hear what is on the radio, you believe what's on the radio, end quote. Mr. Burke made it clear he believes January 6th was not an insurrection, not even a riot, but, quote, just an event staged by the government. And he was glad that Blumenshine led a trip to go support the former president in his false claims of election fraud. These are not the people we need in positions of leadership, power, or influence. And regardless of who is recommended tonight by the Republican chair on the board, we should be clear this is not the fringe of the Republican Party. Mr. Blumenshine is in a leadership position with the party, and that radio station is a significant part of the party's work. As a Democrat, I want to see Democrats elected.
I had to play the little violin sound. Wait, hold on. Yeah. And play me a sad little song on your little violin, Ben Matthews. Chill out, dude. So he's sitting there and he's like, Chad Burke, he said that he believed everything that it was on the radio. David Paul Blumenshine was there at January 6th. He was reporting. Nobody else was there. Ben, were you there? No, you weren't there. And David Paul Blumenshine, he had a hip replacement, and we took a bus of mainly elderly people, and not, militants. And no one went inside the Capitol. And I'm sorry, it was all political theater. I mean, there's so much coming out. We've seen the footage. Tucker Carlson released the footage of the Capitol Police walking people into the Capitol. They ushered them into the Capitol. What do you mean there was a violent insurrection? There's people on tape, Capitol Police on tape, ushering people into the Capitol. Nobody's been charged with insurrection. Now, there are people sitting in prison cells without any food, without any bathroom. They've got a bucket and they've got a little blue mat that they're sleeping on, and they don't have any clothes for trespassing. They've been charged with trespassing. Nobody's been charged with insurrection. Everybody's been charged with trespassing, and they've been sitting in prison for 2 years now. Ben Matthews, you weren't even there. How can you say it was a violent insurrection? David Paul Blumenshine was there, and he reported on the radio what was going on and what he saw. You weren't there, Ben. You don't know. Cry harder, please. I love this comment. Catherine Metzger was afraid if a true conservative was picked, the reaction would have been negative. That's the goal. Playing nice is over. I'm tired of Republicans playing scared locally and nationally. Yes, well, and I told you, I've talked about it a lot on the radio here. Chad Burke, the line of questioning of these applicants was deeply inappropriate. Both David Paul Blumenshine and Chad Burke. The line of questioning for both of those candidates was wildly inappropriate and borderline. It was attacking a private citizen in some sort of way. So Chad, he was stabbed 19 times. He was arrested for self-defense. And the judge said that this community and the justice system here locally failed him. The judge said that in court. He was stabbed 19 times in front of his own house. Okay. And he was the one who was arrested. And Elizabeth Johnson had the cojones to ask him about it and to really make him relive that trauma of being stabbed 19 times. He was a stabbing victim. And she made him relive that trauma. And she said, people are concerned. I mean, it wasn't even a question. It was, people are concerned about your temperament. Care to comment? Like, that's not a question. That's all hearsay. And she got to ask that question anyway. And then David Paul Blumenshine, he was interrogated about his residency, although it's very clear on the form what his residency is. And they asked him, where are you going to be in a year? Where are you going to be in a year? You failed so much in your campaigns, in your previous campaigns, and you've tried to run for office before. Why do you think the people want you for county board? I mean, interrogating these two applicants. No wonder nobody wants to be a part of the damn process. They're like, oh, well, right-wing radio, insurrection radio, you guys are stoking fear and fear-mongering. And it's like, no, we're being realistic. I'm a realist. And of course, nobody wants to be a part of that process. I mean, who would want to apply ever again to a county board seat after being questioned like that? Having to relive a trauma in front of the whole damn county. And it was inappropriate. Where were the Republicans? Where was Catherine Metzger? Where were the Republicans? I've got to consider what the Democrats want, and I've got to consider what they want when it comes to an applicant, and we have to work across the aisle. Are you kidding me? Elizabeth Johnson sat there and she questioned a victim and made him relive his trauma. And then berated David Paul Blumenshine about his place of residency, although it's very clear on the form and they can check where he lives. It doesn't matter what. And I think it's hilarious when Republicans say, well, we got to work across the aisle. We got to work across the aisle. We got to consider, working with each other. No. Cutesy time is over. She questioned a stabbing victim, made him relive it up there. They're threats to democracy, as they like to say. They actually are, because guess what? Now, nobody would ever, I would never, ever put myself up there and try to apply for something. I know you wouldn't either. Because who knows? They're going to question you. why do you have this dog? Why why do why why are you 6'3"? Why they're gonna question you on every little detail and berate you and interrogate you, like these two candidates faced, just because they were Republicans, or conservative Republicans. It's just amazing. And yeah, so Randall Knapp, he's the moderate pick, and that's why they went with him. I'm sure he's going to be a great McLean County board member. It's not even that. My issue is that they're going to sit there and they're going to say, "Oh, well, we had to work with the aisle. That's why we nominated Don Knapp or Randall Knapp, and we had to, get somebody up there that everybody felt would be good for the board and everybody felt would be good for the county." Uh, no. What's good for the constituents? Really? What's good for the constituents? I don't care what Crystal Label thinks, Corey Byrne thinks about this nominee. What's the people of the county District 5? How would they like to be represented? That's the only thing that really matters. Anyway, so I Ben Matthews, I don't know, cry harder. I don't know what to tell you. He's sitting there, the insurrection radio, the insurrection bus trip. It's like, you weren't even there. I mean, there. Next. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about Goshen, this battery maker. So the Chicago Tribune, it's really kind of funny, and the wirepoints.org did this. It's amazing. So they've got 5,465 articles that when you search in their database have the word far right or right wing in there. And then when you search far left or left wing, you get less than like 2,000. There's less than half of that. So it's 2,477. So you tell me, who are the what kind of bias does the Chicago Tribune have? I'm going to be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. A candidate needs to be strong enough to handle the questions, or perhaps they're not strong enough to lead, argue their position on the board if seated. So, yes, that's a great point. I want to be very clear. Chad Berg, David Paul Blumenshine, it's not like they, were upset by the questioning. They just brushed it off and they answered the questions anyway. That's not really what I'm talking about. Okay. So, yes, they can answer these questions, but the questions themselves were inappropriate. So, I'm talking about the question coming from Elizabeth Johnson, the Democrat on the county board. She phrased that they weren't even really questions, they were hearsay. So, she says, some neighbors in Ironwood are concerned about your temperament. And she goes, care to comment? That's not a question. You're asking for commentary on hearsay. You didn't provide any names, any examples of people who were concerned of Chad Berg's temperament. But the questions were inappropriate. And I'm not saying that the candidates, they should be able to answer those questions, and that's fine. But what's wrong with the Republicans? Why didn't they pipe up and say, hey, this line of questioning might be inappropriate for what we're doing here today? And, the working across the aisle, Republicans say we got to work across the aisle, work across the aisle, work across the aisle. But Democrats don't want to work across the aisle, because if Elizabeth Johnson had any kind of urge to work across the aisle, she wouldn't have waited for a public forum to interrogate a victim of a violent stabbing. Okay, she wouldn't have waited to do that in a public forum. If she was truly wanting to know more about the applicants and actually wanted to ask these questions, why not approach them prior to the meeting and say, "Hey, I saw this. I'm just kind of curious. Do you mind talking with me about it? And can I ask this question in this public forum? Do you think I was planning on asking this question in a public forum, but I don't want to, come across as or interrogating you, and I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that. So, yeah, I just don't know why. And Republicans, I mean, they didn't ask anything of Kathy Woods, who was a Democrat, 100%. She was a Democrat. That's Kathy Woods. She was a volunteer, or she talked about how she had this, experience as an accountant in the private sector, and how she was great with finance. And then she also talked a lot about her volunteerism, and she's a volunteer. And just briefly, I looked at her social media. The first thing I see is she donates to a Texas coalition, and it's a Black Lives Matter Texas coalition, and it's a Trans Lives Matter. So it's like, I don't know, an entire nonprofit organization dedicated to transitioning people within the Black community, and really working on the non-binary experience, whatever that means. So the Republicans didn't ask her about that. And that's what I'm talking about. The Republicans never ask the tough questions. Why is it always the Democrats who ask the tough questions? Okay, and and allow the Democrats to ask the tough questions. The Republicans allow it. So, I mean, I thought the line of questioning was deeply inappropriate for both those candidates, and it's a shame that none of the Republicans piped up and said, "Hey, this line of questioning might be good," or not even that. Just ask questions of the Democrat that they put up there, Kathy Woods. Ask her, "Hey, I see you donated here to Black trans lives down in Texas. Do you think that that is a standard of a Republican? Is that something a Republican would do?" And just ask her. I'm curious. Is that something a Republican would do? All right. Well, I do have to talk a little bit about Goshen, the Chicago Tribune, doing the work of JB, as a good progressive news outlet always does here in the state of Illinois. It's a routine tactic of today's progressive news outlets and politicians to just dismiss legitimate claims that they don't like as right wing and far right. So I love it. That's what JB is doing when it comes to this Goshen plant that's scheduled to go up in Manteno, Illinois. And there's people, the residents, are upset that they weren't included in the process, and they have a few legitimate concerns about this electric vehicle battery maker plant that is the CCP. It's not even ties with the CCP. If you look at their bylaws, it says that we have to do everything to serve the party and to further the party. That's what it says in their own bylaws, the company. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. I got to take another quick break, but we'll be back. See me live in studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. You can interact with me and I can interact with you. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I get all of these. I'm fielding these text messages in the comments section here, and my issue is just they people will say, "Oh, well, tough questions. It's going to happen. That's fine." But how come it never happens for them? We should be asking questions of people like Corey Byrne. Hey, Corey Byrne, what what is it? When you are on tape here saying that you believe that the age of consent should be 9 years old. What did you mean by that? Why don't we ask him that question? What why are the tough questions only reserved for the people who are conservative or who have a political affiliation of Republican? Okay, why are we only asking tough questions of those guys? Um, Kathy Woods, the obvious Democrat pick, right? So she um, was volunteering for Black Trans Lives Matter. She donated. It's very public on her social media page. I just typed in her name and boom, there it was. She's got donations placed for Black Trans Coalition and down in Texas. And I mean, that's part of her volunteerism. She makes monetary donations to that organization, and I find that odd, considering she's supposed to be filling a Republican seat. Um, where was the Republicans? Why didn't they ask, "Hey, Kathy Woods, I see you've donated here to a Black Trans Coalition. Your thoughts there, and are you a Republican or what? Do you think that's a tendency of a Republican to donate and to volunteer for Black trans coalitions and down in Texas? And you claim to be um, a volunteer of and that's what is going to make you a good county board member. I'm sorry, but your volunteerism, some of it isn't down in Texas. Why? I mean, wouldn't you? Why not in Illinois State Black Trans Coalition? Why donate to this coalition? Where is the pressing of Democrats? You're going to say, oh well, Republicans you have to answer tough questions if you're going to be on the county board. Fine, sure. Where are the tough questions for the Democrat side of the aisle? Like, are we only going to do this for the Republicans? It's just wild. Um, yeah, so the line of questioning I think was very disappointing from Elizabeth Johnson and Leah Klein. Leah Klein asked questions of David Paul Blumenshine. I mean, at the end of the day, you can ask those questions, but it's more so the Republicans and their silence. They didn't ask any questions of, the Republicans that were up there that were tough. Okay, a lot of the Republicans on the executive committee meeting board, they didn't ask any questions at all of any Republicans up there. So I'm I'm disappointed. We are going to be talking with Chuck Erickson. He is a Republican on the executive committee meeting, and I just have expressed vocal disappointment. I just wish that one of these Republicans would have piped up and asked a question of one of them, of Kathy Woods. Why? Very clear Democrat pick. Whew, the end of the hour is already here. That snuck up on me, folks. But we are going to be back talking a little bit about Pete Buttigieg. He was chased out of this event because these climate activists are upset about a couple of proposed oil, like it's a oil thing where and they're upset about these two proposed oil transport projects. That's what they're transport projects. And they were upset with Pete Buttigieg and they chased him out of the event, the climate activist. So I'm excited. I love when progressives eat their own. I'll be back on the other side. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I get it. And I think that they're great people. I'm not saying that Chuck Erickson, I'm not saying that Catherine Metzger is not a great person. I'm not saying Randall Knapp is not a great person, but I'm so tired of this, working across the aisle crap. When they are rabid, okay? They are rabid. They are against Republicans, viciously against Republicans. And I mean, that was very clear by Ben Matthews' crybaby public comment. He was sitting there and he was saying, he led a violent insurrection on the Capitol. Really? Because nobody's been charged with insurrection. Now, there's been people who have been charged with trespassing and they've been held in prison for 2 years without proper bathroom facilities, or they've been deprived of clothing. So they've been treated very inhumanely in prison cells, the people who trespassed that day on January 6th. But he wasn't there. That's the thing. He wasn't there. Chad Burke, I don't know what he was quoting from Chad Burke. He said something that Chad Burke believed that the insurrection, or that it wasn't an insurrection, but it was an event, and that he heard it on the radio and that he believed that to be true, probably because the people on the radio were there. Okay, David Paul Blumenschein getting behind the microphone and talking about what he saw that day. He said it was political theater. He saw these charter buses. He said, there was all kinds of things. I've had friends that were there, and they've described to me everything that was going on. We've had guests on, Brandon Strzok, who had his home busted into. They took the battering ram and they just went into his house. They shackled him like a dog. And he wasn't even in the Capitol. He was on the other side of the Capitol. There was like a side of the Capitol that people trespassed. I don't even know if that's considered trespassing, because you've got Capitol Police ushering people in on videotape. Okay, opening the door, ushering people in. Like, that's, can you really call it trespassing if a police officer is ushering you in somewhere? Right? And like, don't believe me, believe the video that was released by Tucker Carlson, the hours of footage. So yeah, Ben Matthews, I mean, he got out there and he ripped on the two candidates via public comment, and that's his right to do so. It's Elizabeth Johnson's right to ask questions. That's fine too. I'm just sick and tired of Republicans sitting on their hands and not saying anything and allowing that, and then continuing to say we need to work across the aisle. We need to work across the aisle. No, cutesy time is over. They're not working across the aisle. You want to talk about not working across the aisle? Sitting there and berating a stabbing victim because it's fun, or because he has an R in front of his name, is not cool. Okay, it's not appropriate, and it was wrong. And I mean, where is the moral backbone of Republicans? Where is the morality? I mean, forget politics, party politics. Where's your morality as a human being? He's up there and he's reliving this trauma, describing how somebody stabbed him 19 times in a public forum. And the guy just wanted to be considered to fill the vacancy on the county board. You shouldn't have to relive your prior traumas just because you want to fill a vacancy on the board. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, and if she would have done just a little bit of research, she would have known that the judge himself said, "Hey, the justice system deserved you. They didn't do a good job in this case." And he goes, "This is why I got into what I got into to prevent things like this from happening, and to see his neighbors, band together and testify on his behalf, because he was arrested for self-defense unjustly by the Normal Police Department, and they let him go, right? Because they had to drop the charges because he was defending himself." So yeah, the GOP is scared what the MSN will say about the MSM, mainstream media will say about them if they speak up against the insanity. Yeah. And I don't understand, like, local politics, right? Your mainstream media, local politics, like, you're really that afraid of those publications? Okay. Uh Already. You're really that afraid of those publications? Why are you afraid? Just do the right thing. The right thing was to stop that line of questioning and prevent a victim of a stabbing from reliving his trauma. The right thing would be to say, "Hey, no, David Paul Blumenschein, he lives here. It's on his application. We're not going to question where he lives if we've got the application in front of us or where he plans to be in a year from now. It doesn't matter. Okay. He has to fill the vacancy until the next election. As long as he's here to fill that vacancy, then it's really not our problem. You want to talk about staying in power? That question was inappropriate. So Ben Matthews, he goes, what was the direct quote from Ben Matthews? He said something about, it shouldn't be about staying in power. It should be about the people or whatever, Ben Matthews. And you really want to talk about staying in power. Those people used their position of authority against people who were out of that position of authority against private citizens. So if you want to talk about power, Ben Matthews, I would caution you because the people who exhibit their power over others, it's definitely the Democrats, especially in these situations where they asked inappropriate questions. So my 2 cents, if anybody cares, but we'll be back. Hey, good morning. We talked about Dylan Mulvaney in the 6 o'clock hour. Yes, he he won Woman of the Year. This was an award, and look, the patriarchy is striking again. So this gay magazine in the UK has awarded their first ever Woman of the Year award to a man, and Dylan Mulvaney has been honored by this magazine. The magazine is called Attitude. And look, Dylan Mulvaney, you haven't even been a woman for 2 years. How in the world are you Woman of the Year if you haven't even been a woman for 2 years, right? He's just barely some year and some change. He's been a woman. How do you get Woman of the Year when you haven't even really been a woman? I don't know. So we talked about that in the 6 o'clock hour. I do want to get to Stop Petro Pete. Stop Petro Pete, because Pete Buttigieg, he was chased out by some climate activists, some far left climate protesters, and they chased Pete Buttigieg from the event, which is hilarious. I love when progressives eat their own. So we're going to get to that. And then a little bit later, I will hit on the Goshen electric vehicle battery plant. Chicago Tribune, of course, they're shilling for Governor J.B. Pritzker. They're saying that if you're against the Goshen battery plant, mind you, that just doesn't have ties with the CCP, but is the CCP, because according to their bylaws, one of the main goals of their company is to further the party, to further the Communist Chinese Party. Chinese Communist Party. That is their goal, and it's written in their bylaws very clearly. So they are the CCP. It's not even a company with ties to the CCP. This is a company for the CCP of the CCP. So we're going to talk about that because the Chicago Tribune is saying that it's far right or it's xenophobic, that the Manteno residents do not want this battery plant to pop up in their hometown. Try it in a small town. You'll find out you're going to get some resistance. And they're trying to say that this Goshen battery plant, recently has been getting backlash. No, this has been going on forever, because there's another one in Michigan, and that has bipartisan support. Like, it's a bipartisan issue. They don't want it. People on the left, people on the right, because it brings about so many different legitimate concerns. And we'll get to those here coming up in just a little bit. But first, I do want to talk about Pete Buttigieg. So radical left-wing climate activists, prophets, cult members, whatever you want to say, they stormed the stage at an event in Baltimore, and they demanded that the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, stop fossil fuel infrastructure projects. I had no clue Pete Buttigieg was back from maternity leave. I thought he was on maternity leave. I had no idea that he was finally back, but I got. But there's this video, and it's actually very satisfying to watch. Over a dozen activists from this left-wing youth-led organization, it's called Climate Defiance, they stormed the stage while Pete Buttigieg was speaking, and they ran him out of the event. So the climate cultists, They demanded that he put an end, and really what the project is, it's a two proposed oil transport, two of them, there's two oil transport projects. And they're just proposed right now. So it's not like a done deal yet, but they're proposed, and they are projects that the Department of Transportation's Maritime Administration is reviewing right now. So they're not a done deal. But the climate defense, this is a very satisfying video, and I can't wait to share with you. As always, this is the Morning Buzz. I'm Kat Peterson, 309-451-9299. You can go ahead and see me live in studio, and you can watch this clip. I think the film of it is actually really good. So you won't want to miss it. Go check it out on the stream. But here we go. Let's take a listen.
And fossil fuels, Pete, and fossil fuels, and fossil fuels. Stop PETRO, stop PETRO. Stop PETRO.
Your DOT just approved the Seaport Oil Terminal, a project that will have 80 coal plants worth of greenhouse gas emissions and will worsen air quality in areas that already live in cancer clusters. This is about environmental racism, and it's about the climate impacts this project will have. Will you commit to stopping this project?
Secretary, would you care to address this?
Yeah, for sure. So this has to do with a set of.
Describe what the proposal is, where it is, and where it is in the process.
So I don't want to say anything off the cuff, but I respect where it comes from.
80,000 comments have been submitted. Communities have spoken.
Go Flink, stop PETRO. Stop, spot, and go Flink, stop PETRO. Stop, spot, and go Flink, stop PETRO.
So they chased him out of the event. These climate alarmists, they demanded he put an end to these oil transport projects, and they were saying that it was going to be like 80 coal plants. I don't think that that's true at all. But at the end there, I don't know if you caught it, what this climate alarmist said. He goes, "This is about environmental racism, and it's about climate impacts this project will have. Will you commit to stopping these projects?" Oh, great. Two ambiguous threats that you cannot touch or see. Racism, climate impacts. According to them, racism and climate change are two invisible evils that will cause humanity to ultimately be destroyed. And these are two things that you can't see, you can't touch, and, so convenient, but they're two ambiguous threats. During the protest, the climate prophets called Pete Buttigieg Petro Pete, which I thought was pretty funny, and they demanded that he end fossil fuels, and they were chanting, "Which side are you on, Pete? Which side are you on?" When the event's moderator, and you heard her pipe up there, she said, "Did you want to address the protesters?" And Pete Buttigieg said yes, but he didn't want to speak off the cuff, and said that he respected where they were coming from. That's what Pete Buttigieg said. So he goes, "I get the urgency. By the time my kids are old enough to ask, we're going to have a really good answer to get out of climate change." That's what he said, Pete Buttigieg. And then he goes, "But my hope also is that some of those folks who were just here saw what happened when I was in front of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee 2 weeks ago, trying to persuade them and members of Congress to understand that the season's changing. It's not the same thing as climate change." And he goes, "And if this literally came up, and so we've got literal or if this literally came up, and so we've got literal climate deniers who can't be bothered to admit that climate change is real." So what he's trying to say here to this publication, Pete Buttigieg, he's on record here. He says, "Well, we've got climate deniers out there, so I can't really begin to address these two proposed oil transport projects because I've actually got to fight these climate deniers." That's essentially what he's saying there. I guess these activists did not get the memo that Petro Pete does not care about limiting fossil fuels. Okay, that's why he rides his bike to work, from across the street after he's unloaded it from his SUV. Okay, so that's how these people operate. They don't care about the climate. They use the climate alarmism. They use the climate change things to get you to care about it, and to get these people to get all riled up about it, and to, look to that for some sort of religion. That's really what it is. The climate change thing is like a religion, and it's a creepy cult that they're in. They think that climate change is going to destroy the planet. And it's a very far left idea. But Petro Pete doesn't really care about the environment. As you can see, they're going to continue these projects, their oil transport projects. And he said, "Oh, well, I've got to try to work on getting people to admit that climate change is actually real. So I can't be bothered to actually, stop these oil transport projects because I've got a much bigger issue. I got to convince these people that climate change is actually real before I can get them, before I can stop these projects." He doesn't care. Uh, but it is really hard for me to choose a side here. Obviously, the climate cult is one of the most revolting activist groups parading around society. On the other hand, I've got Pete Buttigieg, who is just the worst. He's just the worst, and he's so bad at everything he does that even the liberal lunatics see him as as an embarrassment, and that says a lot. The whole event was nothing but a clown show. First, Pete Buttigieg shows up, and that's enough of a joke right there. Pete Buttigieg at an event, that's a joke. Then a bunch of these radical climate cult freaks came and started chanting creepy rituals. So we also know not a single one of those activists probably live a life of free of fossil fuels. And I would not be surprised if they have a higher carbon footprint than most people, since we often find out that their demands end up being worse for the environment, much like the Goshen battery plant, right? These electric vehicles, they're so much worse for the environment than a gas powered car. Their carbon footprint is 20, 50 times, I don't know the exact number, but it's so much worse than that of a gas powered car, because of the mining of these precious materials. And I mean, electric doesn't come from just nowhere. Okay, you still need to burn fossil fuels to get electric. Okay, so that's the thing. It's incredible. But at the very least, I love it when progressives eat their own. I think it's kind of funny. So I did want to shift gears here and talk a little bit about how leftists will tell us that bail, no cash bail, is a good thing because it'll fix racism or whatever. That's what they'll say. They'll say, "Oh, no cash bail is great because it fixes racism." Okay. However, you have got to be pretty ignorant and stupid or absolutely evil to promote no cash bail. I'm just going to be honest with you. And they're trying to gaslight us and tell us not to worry about the no cash bail thing here in the state of Illinois. And that only people who like jaywalk or if they steal a loaf of bread to feed their family of six, that those are the only people that are going to be left out or let out of jail. That's just not true. Anyone with half a brain knows that that's complete crap. And I've actually got a story here about a woman who beat a man with a metal pole, and she skipped a prior court date. She was released from jail without having to post bail. And then she was deemed like this moderate risk. And then she was left to go back out. And I mean, lo and behold, she does it again. So this woman beats another woman to death with a metal pole, and she kills her. And then she beats another man with a metal pole. So crazy woman. She was actually charged with battery after she beat a 7-year-old child, and she's still out. Like, this woman is still out, and she's not having to post bail. This is, I mean, crazy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that story. I think it's a great example of how evil and wrong no cash bail is. We're going to talk about that, plus the Goshen battery plant plan for Manteno, Illinois. You guys can see me live in the studio. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'll be back on the other side. Hey, folks, if you're watching, go ahead, smash that like button. Just hit it. Hit that like button. We are going to be back talking a little bit about this crazy story about this woman who was deemed like a moderate risk, but then she was like let out, and then she wound up beating somebody with a metal pole, killing that person. So the mother, she then killed the mother of 8 with a metal pole after she was released back out into the wild here. She's an animal. And I'm going to refer to her as an animal because she has so many different priors. She was deemed a moderate risk, and after all of that, she's failed to appear in court. She missed a prior court date. They deemed her a moderate risk, and then they said, "Oh well, she has not failed to appear at any court date within the last 2 years," which was a lie. That wasn't true. She did fail to appear in court back in 2020, um, and I'll get to that relating to a charge. After she beat a 7-year-old child. So she beat a 7-year-old child, but beating a child is only a moderate risk to public safety. No, I would consider beating a 7-year-old child is an extreme risk to public safety. So it goes on. She winds up beating these two people with a metal pole, and she gets let out again. So she's killed somebody at this point, and she has severely injured the man. He survived the beating. But I don't know how you can let someone out who attempted to kill someone and then not expect them to do it again. Okay. And this is such a clear, I mean, and you guys will have to see it. It's a YouTube video. It's from a couple of days ago. I interviewed Chad Burke, how he was arrested for self-defense. So prior to stabbing Chad, he stabbed a couple of other people, and this is all detailed out in a police report where he stabs an ISU, or goes after an ISU couple on campus and attempts to stab them. And then they let him go. Like, they dropped the charges and they let him go. And then we're all like, "Oh man, how can a guy stab somebody 19 times and not be pressed or charged?" It's because they let him go the last time he stabbed somebody. Stabby McStabberson, right? I mean, come on. Allegedly stabs, allegedly, I guess, because he was never charged with that, or he was never convicted of anything. But I mean, he was arrested, and there were witnesses on the scene that saw it happen, where he goes after this ISU couple with a knife in 2016. Fast forward to 2022, May of 2022, he winds up stabbing a guy 19 times. Like, yeah, no, I guess I could have guessed that one. You let out somebody who attempts to kill someone with a knife. Like, you don't just go after somebody with a knife just for funsies, right? You're trying to hurt them, or you're trying to kill them. Assault with a deadly weapon. Come on. But I don't know how these people get out of it, charges. Even they get out of charges, they get out of jail, and they're just left to go walking out on the street. So the gaslighting for me, it's really the gaslighting for me. Um, the left will sit there and they'll say, "Oh, it's just a jaywalker that they, let go without posting bail. It's just the woman who steals bread for her 6 kids at home. They let her go and she doesn't have to post bail." No, these people, anybody with half a brain knows that's complete crap. And this is such a clear story of that. And I'm so excited to bring it to you. And then we'll also talk about the Goshen battery plant planned for Mantino. Yes. So, for those of you joining me on YouTube, so I host a radio show, and I hit all kinds of stories. So in the 6 o'clock hour, I talked about DYLAN MULVANEY. I will get back to DYLAN MULVANEY here probably in the 8 o'clock hour. It's a 3-hour radio show. I'm live for 3 hours. So I might talk about a few other things other than DYLAN MULVANEY today, but I include the thumbnail. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the thumbnail. Just one story, because the thumbnail would get kind of ridiculous, because I've talked about Petro so far. I've talked about this woman being deemed a moderate risk after she beat a man with a metal pole and she was released without bail. And then she actually killed somebody, a mother of 8, which is truly tragic. So I've talked about a lot, but DYLAN MULVANEY, yeah, he won the Woman of the Year award. And truly, this is patriarchy. Patriarchy striking again. This is actual patriarchy, where a man is able to win a Woman of the Year award when he's only been a woman for like a year and some change. He even admits that. He goes, "Yeah, I've only been a woman for a year and some change, 560 days. I'm sorry, but DYLAN MULVANEY, the point is here, 560 days, you're still not a girl. You'll never be a girl." And he even admits that. You can actually hear it in his voice, where he's like, "It doesn't matter how many clothes I wear. It doesn't matter what surgeries I have. those people will never see me as a woman. There's people who will never see me as a woman. Maybe it's because you will never be a woman. Have you ever considered that? You'll never feel like a woman because you're not actually a woman. I'm sorry, truth is not subjective, it's objective. So Illinois, we've got no cash bail. Yes, yes, yes. And I've got this story, and I was kind of worried. I was like, should I really do this story? And I was like, yeah, I guess I should. This woman, so she was deemed a moderate risk after beating a man with a metal pole, and she was released without bail. So she did not have to post bail. She actually beat a man with a metal pole so bad, but he survived. But then she also beat a woman, uh, a mom who has 8 children, and killed her. Okay, so this is a crazy woman who beats people with metal poles, and she's out there in she's out there amidst the public. So I've got to talk about it here, and don't let the left tell you that no bail is a good thing. Don't let them tell you that, because it's not a good thing that there is no cash bail. They try to say that it's going to fix racism or whatever. That's not true. It's bad. No cash bail is a bad thing. You have to be extremely ignorant or stupid or absolutely evil to promote things like no cash bail. And I'll tell you why here in just a second. They keep trying to gaslight you, and they're going to sit there and they're going to say, oh, well, the guy who jaywalks, why should he have to pay bail? Why should he have to post bail? The woman who steals bread from Walmart to save or to feed her 3 children at home, why should she have to post bail? No, 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 no. Anyone with half a brain does not believe that crap. It's not the jaywalkers. It's not mom stealing a loaf of bread for her starving children at home who uh, this is helping out here. This is violent criminals getting out, and they're out there to commit more crimes. So this woman, she beat a man with a metal pole, and then she skipped a prior court date, and then she was released from jail without having to post bail. So according to the reports here, I've got them right in front of me. She was deemed a moderate risk, as it was shown she had not failed to appear at any court date in the past 2 years. So she was showing up to her court dates, so they deemed her a moderate risk because she was showing up to her court date. But that's a lie, because the crazy woman, her name is Vanessa Harvey, she missed a court date actually in 2020. And I've got it here. She missed it. And this 2020 charge related to the battery of a 7-year-old child. So she beat up a 7-year-old child because, beating up a child is a moderate risk to public safety. And she did actually miss a court date. So they deemed her a moderate risk because they saw that she did show up to every single court date in the past 2 years. But the fact is that she didn't. She missed one in 2020. In the past 2 years, she was showing up to court dates, but she did miss one in 2020. And that was related to a charge of beating up a 7-year-old kid. She killed a mother of 8 with a metal pole, and then she was released back into the wild. That's what she did. She beat a woman. So, well, wow, shocker. Even if she really was deemed moderate, that is still a big risk, and she definitely shouldn't be released to the public. Okay, so after she beat the 7-year-old child up and missed her court date, she was deemed a moderate risk to public safety, and they let her go without posting bail. And then after that, she kills a mother of 8 with a metal pole. And look, the moderate thing, like, it's not mild risk. She's a moderate risk. So why is she out amidst the public? I don't know. I definitely do not want to be around people who contribute a moderate risk to my safety. Okay. So I don't know about you, but I don't think I want to be around people who pose a moderate risk to my safety. They should be locked up. If you're deemed a moderate risk, whatever that means, I don't want you around me. Someone who beats another individual with a metal pole is obviously very dangerous and a sick person. Someone who beats a child is obviously very dangerous and a sick person. And when you have both, you should never be let out of jail. Ever. Ever. She kills a woman. She beats a 7-year-old, and she's out of jail. She's out running around right now. She's been released out back into the wild. But they did let her out. She beat 2 more people up with a metal pole. 2 more people. So a different man, a different woman. She killed somebody with a metal pole, and then she beat some more people up with a metal pole, because that's what moderately risky people do. A couple of weeks later, after she's got the 7-year-old beating up the 7-year-old, she killed somebody. This is the story of how she killed this woman with a metal pole. So a couple of weeks later, after she was released for the 7-year-old, Machina Goodjoint is her name. She was just walking around her neighborhood, and when she and another man who wasn't named in the story, I don't know why they didn't name the guy, but she was attacked by the woman wielding a metal pole. The police body cam footage shows the officers found Goodjoint near the sidewalk with a massive head wound. And the officer thought that she had been actually shot in the face. So you can see the body cam footage, and the officer says, I think she's been shot in the face, because that's how severe her injury was. It looked like she was shot in the face. She died. Harvey pleaded guilty earlier this year to a charge of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Goodjoint. That's Machina Goodjoint, the woman, mother of 8. The man said she was walking with Machina Goodjoint. The man survived the beating, actually. So how can you let someone out who attempted to kill someone and expect them to not do it again? That's my thing. And, you're like, Kat, where'd this all happen? Yes, it happened in, I think, Los Angeles or something like that, California. It happens here. And I've had somebody on recently this week who described a man stabbing him 19 times right in front of his house. And it's very unfortunate that the normal police didn't arrest that guy. They arrested the guy who stabbed 19 times, protecting himself with self-defense jujitsu and trying to save him and his family. The guy that stabbed the guy 19 times prior to that has police reports and witnesses having him on a scene where he was trying to stab a couple and saying racial slurs at this interracial couple on Illinois State University's campus. So stop it with the whole, it doesn't happen here. It does. And they release these people. And that guy is out and about. I mean, he lives around my neighborhood. Like, I don't want to be out with people who is a serial stabber. All right. But the Los Angeles or Las Vegas, it's Las Vegas is where she's at. This metal pole woman who beats people with metal poles. The justice in the court, she released her without bail because she, quote, acted in self-defense. That's what she says. She has the metal pole. They sustained the injuries. She said that she was acting out in self-defense. What is it with progressives defending the most evil people in our society? It honestly seems they get an enjoyment out of it, coming to the defense of the evil people in our society. So there's this woman, it's so sad, Goodjoint's aunt. She talks about how my baby walked around even though she didn't have much herself, and she walked around and she fed people in the street. So that's probably what happened. This Machina Goodjoint, who was the mother of 8, she died at the beating of this metal pole. She would walk around and feed homeless people. And the aunt of Goodjoint, she said that she had actually previously helped Vanessa Harvey, the crazy woman, by giving her meals. So this was, a crazy woman, and she would go and she'd give meals to the homeless people. And one day she just didn't. She just stopped living because she was there. Several minutes after the police found the victims, they located Harvey with a bloody metal pole right by her side. We've got a pole over there, and you can hear it in the video. The officer saying, "We've got a pole over there. There's blood on it." And then the officer asks Harvey, the crazy woman, "Are you hurt?" And then the officer, I love it in the body cam footage, he goes, "Dude, she's the one with the pole." And he realizes that she's in possession of the murder weapon. So she's going to be eligible for parole in 2025, even though she killed an innocent person, and will probably do something like this again. Okay, point of the story is she's probably going to do something like this again. She's out. She's going to get parole 2025. And the justice system, if it was fair, and I'm going to be honest with you, if it was fair, she would get the death penalty. She killed a mother who had 8 children. She brutally attacked a man, and he survived his injuries, but I'm shocked that he did. It really makes no sense why they just don't throw away the key in cases like this. I don't get it. There seems it seems there's a lot of people who are actively trying to get her back out into the public as if she's some sort of victim in all of this. And this death was preventable had the judge kept her in jail. Because there were multiple times she beat somebody with a metal pole prior to beating these people with a metal pole. She beat up a 7-year-old child, but they let her out of jail, probably because of white privilege or something like that. I guess this case is nothing more than a metal assault pole. Who's to blame? If anyone's to blame, it's the manufacturer's fault for making it so easy to beat somebody to death with a metal pole. All jokes aside, it's clear that the progressives' priorities are to promote chaos. That is their goal. That is their thing. No cash bail creates lawlessness, and it does not take a genius to figure that out. This case is very clear. So, at the beginning of this story, I'm sure you're like, yeah, leftists tell me it's, racist to have people pay bail. No, it is actually a way to keep the criminals inside of the jail, the people who pose a moderate risk to society. I love that, moderate risk. Would you wanna be around somebody who's deemed a moderate risk? There's probably people out and about deemed a moderate risk right now, and you're just they're out there in society living amidst us. It's a shame. I'll be back. We are going to be chatting a little bit about the Goshen battery plant. I wanna talk about that. Plus, one thing that I did wanna also talk about was DYLAN MULVANEY. He won Woman of the Year award, and look, this is the patriarchy striking again. DYLAN MULVANEY, I don't care. 560 days later, you're still a man. You are not a woman after 560 days of trying to achieve girlhood. You never will be. Newsflash. I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Satanic. Yes. That's all I've got really for these people is, if you're promoting things like no cash bail, you're either super ignorant or stupid or you are evil. I just detailed out for you a case where this woman brutally batters this child, 7 years old. Then she beats somebody with a metal pole. She's allowed to go back out there. And then, I mean, how can we be shocked when she beats somebody with a metal pole and kills somebody? You know, like that was so expected. It was so expected. Why are we letting people out of jail? These are not the jaywalkers. They're not the mother who steals the bread from Walmart to go feed her children. That's not true. And that's gaslighting. If leftists tell you that those are the types of people that we're saving with this no cash bail crap, the Safety Act, Protect Illinois Communities Act, whatever he wants to call it, Governor J.B. Pritzker, it's all lies. This is to promote chaos, and it's been going on for a long time. So even prior to the Safety Act, okay, getting through and being upheld, because I think it was just this year that the Illinois Supreme Court upheld the Safety Act and no cash bail. They deemed it was constitutional, or they said it was constitutional. It's not, but that's besides the point. Even prior to that, so I had a guest in studio, talking about how he was stabbed 19 times and he got arrested because he was stabbed 19 times. So the officers came on the scene, saw that this guy had a knife, right? Or, the guy who had the knife, the guy that was bleeding from the stab wounds, they arrested the guy that was bleeding from the stab wounds instead of the guy who inflicted those stab wounds. Interesting. Um, and the guy never had charges pressed against him for stabbing somebody for 19 different times. Um, and it's just wild to me. It's just wild how something like that happens in our own community, where this guy, he was never charged for stabbing this guy for 19 times. And he's just out and about. And the judge even said, this is this is a disservice. We deserved you. The justice system failed you. So this isn't just me saying this actually happened where a judge said, "Hey, the justice system failed you, Chad Burke," and it happens. It happens in your communities where these people are just free. And the guy had priors. You know what I mean? So the guy prior to stabbing this other gentleman or this gentleman 19 times had priors of going up to people on Illinois State University's campus and stabbing them. Those charges were dropped in 2017, but witnesses placed him there, said that he was saying some racial slurs to this interracial couple on campus. So I don't know. I mean, like the guy who has priors of stabbing somebody, or had like a prior charge of stabbing somebody, now resulting in instead. Now that's the thing about criminals too. They only escalate. Okay, that's they never get better. It's only escalation, escalation, escalation. And each time you decide, oh well, society failed them, or I'm going to get to the root causes, and I'm going to, the buck stops with me. I'm going to end racism, and we're going to do no cash bail, and you guys are going to go out and onto the street and um, live your life. Every time that happens, it gets worse. Okay, so they go out, they commit another crime, they come back, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Then they go out and they commit another crime, another crime, another crime. Eventually, it escalates so much to where not only one person died, a mother of 8, but another guy was brutally beaten with a metal pole. And she beat people with metal poles prior to uh, her her beating these people with a metal pole, and then she beat a 7-year-old child on top of that prior to beating these people with a metal pole and killing somebody. So it's just wild. And I love how on the body cam footage, there's an officer and he goes, "Are you okay?" And like for some odd reason, this officer thought that she was the victim, although she's sitting there unharmed, like totally unharmed, and she's sitting there with the metal pole all bloody. And the cops were like, "Wow." And the one cop was like, "Dude, that's the murder weapon." Like, and she's holding it. Um, sometimes I feel like some of these cops, they've got to be like, I don't know, in some other planet, because I mean, that cop, he looks at that scene. You watch, or I feel like it's just pretty. You look somebody, and she's doesn't appear to be injured or anything. She's obviously crazed, but she's holding a metal pole that's bloody, like super bloody. I mean, every film, everything about that picture, right, just screams, "That's the murder weapon. That's the murder weapon. She's holding it. That's the murder weapon." And yeah, I to have the cop in the body cam footage say, "Are you okay?" Like, what? No. And then the guy was like, quickly, he realized the metal pole, and then he realized, "Oh wow, we just arrived onto a scene where these two people are dead and they were beaten um, with metal poles. I'm thinking that this woman's the murderer." Yeah, she's got like this bloody metal pole in her hand. Yeah, dude, that's the murder weapon. I couldn't believe when I watched that body cam footage of that woman in Las Vegas where she beats these people with a metal pole after being released from jail, no cash bail. She, beat a 7-year-old child. She beat people with metal poles in the past, and she just, whoop, you get out of jail for free card, no cash bail. She gets out, and then she kills somebody with a metal pole, and another man she beats brutally. He managed to survive, but then the cops arrive onto the scene, and it's quite funny. I mean, it's not funny; it's terrible, but it's incredible to hear the cop. He's like, "Are you okay?" And he thinks that she's the victim, and then the cop next to him says, "Dude, that's the murder weapon." He goes, "That's a metal pole. It's got blood on it. Those people we just saw back there, their faces were bashed in so bad. I thought that it was a gunshot." Like that's what they said in the body cam footage. They arrived at the scene. They see this woman and her face is bashed in so bad they thought that she was shot in the face. Turns out she was beaten with a metal pole. But the cop next to the cop that thought that the girl was the victim, I don't know how you arrive onto a scene and then you look onto a scene where this woman, she's holding a metal pole that's like super, super bloody. She's not like unscathed. and she has no injuries. Like as it appears, she kind of looks crazy. But in the body cam footage, they get onto the scene and she's holding the metal pole. And like, how do you arrive onto the scene and you're like, oh, are you okay? No, she's got the metal pole. We were just down the scene. We just saw those people's faces bashed in. She's the murderer, right? Or that's the murder weapon. And I thought it was incredible to hear the cop tell the other cop, no, guys, she's the murderer. So yes, no cash bail. It's an evil thing. And if you promote it, you're either stupid, ignorant, or you love promoting evil. No cash bail is bad. And it's not, don't listen to the gaslighting of the left. It's not these people who are jaywalking that this benefits. Those people were never going to have to pay bail anyway. It's not the people who, the mom who goes into Walmart and steals a loaf of bread for her 6 children who she can't feed at home. Okay. Those people were never charged with bail anyway. They never had to post exorbitant amounts of bail anyway. This is a policy that is implemented here in the state of Illinois and has been upheld by the Illinois Supreme Court here in the state of Illinois. And the purpose of it is to cause chaos and to allow violent, moderate, well, let's call them moderate risk people, because they were deemed this woman was deemed a moderate risk after beating a man with a metal pole, and then she was released without bail, and then she later kills the mom of 8. Okay, so I do want to chat a little bit about Goshen the last couple of minutes here, because the Chicago Tribune, of course, they're shilling for JB because that's what they do best. It's a progressive news outlet, and politicians, they love to dismiss legitimate concerns and claims that they don't like as right wing or as far right. So the Chicago Tribune site and Wirepoints did this like little database search, and they found out that the amount of times that Chicago Tribune used the words far right or right wing total to an amount of 5,465. That's how many articles they have that mention far right or right wing. Then you do a search of the far left or left wing, and you find about less than half of that at 2,477. So you tell me, what's the political affiliation here of Chicago Tribune? Seems like they've got a bias, okay, if they're constantly referring to people as far right or right wing. So on the front page of a Tribune story, it's headline, Manteno EV battery plant promises 2,600 jobs, but far right legislators are stoking fears over Chinese influence. So many Manteno, Illinois residents, Manteno, kind of close to my hometown, has a special place in my heart. They are angered because there was a lack of information that they were given about this battery plant. Okay. And this is what the Tribune says in their article. They say, that has provided an opening for the far-right Republicans struggling for relevancy in a blue state to fill the void by using the specter of communist infiltration fueled by state tax dollars and stoke fears about the project. So they're trying to say that, you know, the Republicans want to be relevant in a blue state, and they're fighting to be relevant in a blue state, which is a weird thing that Democrats believe in. Like, Republicans just being Republicans and existing means that they are struggling for relevancy, or that they are trying to be relevant in a blue state just because they exist. I think it's kind of funny. But anyway, so the Tribune says that they are stoking fear about this Chinese communist company. This is a routine tactic of the progressive news outlets and politicians. They dismiss legitimate claims and concerns of the community as far right and as right wing. It's just what they do. The Goshen battery plant. The Tribune is really just echoing what J.B. Pritzker has already done. He refuses to answer questions about the project. He refuses to address the objections about the Goshen project. He's only labeled and dismissed all of the critics of this project as xenophobes or as MAGA Republicans. Okay, that's what he's doing. But, you know, this isn't, and the firestorm of controversy surrounding Goshen is not anything new, because there's an identical project in Michigan, and it's been underway long before Governor J.B. Pritzker announced that Goshen would come to Illinois. There's Michigan critics and there's people on the right and left who are opposed to this Goshen project because the Goshen project is super bad for the environment. It's bad for the environment because you have to pump in all kinds of water. I don't know how many gallons of water. I think it was like 2,000 gallons of water a day for the Mantino. That's what's projected that they'll need. And people on the left are upset about that, the climate alarmists, obviously. Yes, the Freedom Caucus has led the Goshen criticism when it comes to Illinois legislators, the conservative part, the 7 legislators in the caucus, about 7, I think it is. But good on them. And shame on the others in both parties, Democrats and Republicans alike, who haven't joined the Freedom Caucus in this. The project, it's going to cost $2 billion, but they're getting $8 billion of taxpayer handouts. And it's a Chinese communist company. It's not even like ties with the CCP. They are a Chinese they are the party because in their bylaws, when you read the company bylaws, companies have bylaws. You read one of their bylaws, it says, we will do everything to further the cause of the party or something to that effect. Like, you're no longer tied to the CCP if you have it written in your bylaws that your whole objective is to further the causes of the party. And, I bring this up all of the time. People are like, Kat, what's so bad about the CCP? And I think that this stoking of fear that they're talking about, they're like, what's so bad about the CCP? I forget what company it was, but they made the iPhone. And this company, they were making iPhones and they had children. They were not practicing good labor laws. There's no such thing as unions over there. There's no such thing as OSHA over there. And they're in this huge building. It's a big skyscraper. And at the tippity top of the floor, you could see people just jumping out of the skyscraper from the window because they wanted to kill themselves, and they started to kill themselves because they were so sick of living in China. They were so mistreated by China that they wanted to kill themselves, and they couldn't stand working for this company anymore. So they'd jump out and they'd fall to their death. And China, the CCP, did did this thing where they actually put up suicide nets around the skyscraper because they got sick and tired of people jumping out of the window and killing themselves. So they wouldn't even allow them to kill themselves. That is the CCP. That's how the CCP rolls, and it's coming to Illinois. Okay, so say I stoke fear all you want. That's the reality of the situation. I'm going to be back on the other side. 8 o'clock hour, I have a very special guest, Chuck Erickson, for Cigars with Chuck Erickson. We're going to light up some cigars, smoke some cigars, and talk about the McLean County Board meeting. And I'm very excited to talk about it because Randall Knapp was recently appointed to fill the vacancy of the County Board District Seat 5. So we'll be back. Pritzker is another Chinese paid puppet. Yes. Yes. They are a Chinese paid puppet. People have no memory of the Chinese Red Revolution under Mao Zedong. Yes, Mao Zedong, he has killed tens of millions of people, came up with really weird ways to kill those people. The Red Revolution, people don't remember that. They don't know the history there. One of these days I'm going to do a special and just kind of go through what that is because it's if you ask people who remember the Chinese Red Revolution and under Mao Zedong, if you ask Chinese people about that, they will tell you that everything happening in America is leading up to that. They see the dangers of communism. They see the CCP infiltration here in the United States, and they're worried. Like actual Chinese people are worried about it. So it's not xenophobic if the Chinese people are worried about Goshen becoming or having a presence here in the United States. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. I'm so excited. We are going to be talking a bit about DYLAN Mulvaney probably next. Also do want to talk about the county board meeting last night. Randall Knapp, he was nominated. I think that Randall Knapp will be just fine. I am disappointed that nothing was said to Elizabeth Johnson at the meeting yesterday about her inappropriate line of questioning when it came to Chad Burke and how he had to relive being stabbed 19 times, just simply because he filed for an ABID to be considered for the county board. That's not right. It's not right. And it deters people from wanting to be a part of the process. And that's not good. And it should have been called out by Republicans on the executive committee. I'm going to ask Chuck, hey, why? Why didn't you call it out? There's got to be a reason why. Um, and then I also want to ask a bit about why not ask questions that of Kathy Woods, who is the leftist pick, right? Obviously, she was the Democrat in the mix. She has a social media page where she openly posts that she donates to Black Trans Lives Matter, a coalition down in Texas. It's a far left organization. So I'm going to be back talking about this issue in the 8 o'clock hour. But first, let's get to Dylan Mulvaney here. Kat, what's wrong with that picture? You can beat someone with a metal pole, but when you go to the Capitol to protest, you get thrown in jail, and they're still in jail. Yes. Thank you so much for the text message. You can text in at 309-451-9299. You can also see me live in studio comment. Yes, there is a big problem when we let violent criminals out as a moderate risk, right? I love that. They said, oh, she's just a moderate risk. We're going to let her out and we're not going to give her any kind of bail. She's going to, she doesn't have to post bail. We'll just let her out. And then we let her out. And then turns out she beat somebody to death with a metal pole. But that's okay. That's okay. She acted in self-defense because she wielded a metal pole against somebody, not just against one guy, against two people, and she wound up killing somebody who was the mother of eight children. So, yeah, you pose an interesting thought there, Texter, because you've got people thrown in jail serving what 2+ years. Nobody's been charged with insurrection. How could you be? I mean, there's actual footage of Capitol police officers ushering people into the Capitol, and you've got people in jail sitting in jail with these little thin blue mats. I've seen the pictures. It's all photographed, and they're charged for things like trespassing. And they've got these thin little blue mats that they're expected to sleep on. They aren't given clothes. You're given some gym shorts. This guy, he's given some gym shorts, and then he has to poop in a bucket. Like, how is that right? I don't know. We live in clown world. Everything up is down, right is wrong, or wrong is right. Yeah. So we're talking about Dylan Mulvaney, another clown show, where a man who has only been a so-called woman for about a year and some change, he gets Woman of the Year. That's Dylan Mulvaney. So the patriarchy strikes again. This gay magazine out of the UK awards Dylan Mulvaney the first ever Woman of the Year award to a man. This is the first time they've done it. It's called Attitude, the magazine. Dylan Mulvaney was honored in this magazine as Woman of the Year. The guy hasn't even been a woman for 2 years. Okay, like it's like a year and a half he's been a woman, a so-called woman. Uh, and I'm gonna have to play it here on the other side. But he says the most misogynistic, shallow thing I have ever heard. Womanhood has nothing to do with the clothes you wear and how you talk and the way you speak. It is not what womanhood is. And this guy just makes a mockery of women. And he says, my truth, and truth is not subjective. You cannot have your truth. There's only the truth. 2 + 2 = 4. That's not subjective. There's the truth. And I'm sorry, but the truth is, Dylan Mulvaney, you are a man. You are a man. So I'm going to get to the cross-dresser transvestite here on the other side. Because he gets up there, he gets his award and he gives this speech, and it bothered me. I was like, gosh, this guy is so obnoxious, and I can tell that this guy doesn't actually suffer from gender dysphoria. I think there's actual people who do. This guy, I truly believe, is just a troll out there, and he's just making a mockery of women. I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We've got so much to get to today. Now, one thing I did want to talk about was, there is going to be this jihad, globalist jihad day, and the LAPD, the New York police, they are gathering up police officers and in anticipation for some civil unrest today. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because you might be in a situation where you have to protect yourself. I would not go out, definitely not to a major city or a highly populated area, because they're expecting this global day of jihadism, and that's what Hamas is calling for. They want people to cause civil unrest in America and globally. And yeah, that's kind of why. So also Scalise, he withdrew from the House Speaker race, which is pretty cool. And good. Steve Scalise, I like how Marjorie Taylor Greene said it. She goes, "I care about him enough to say you need to get out. You should not be nominated." And she said that she was going to nominate Jim Jordan, despite him being the GOP nomination or getting the GOP nomination. So Steve Scalise has reportedly withdrawn his name from the House Speaker's race. Laura Ingraham interrupted her broadcast to make the announcement that Scalise had withdrawn from the race. This makes sense. He has cancer. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she gets out and she goes, "I'm going to vote for Jim Jordan because I care about Steve Scalise so much that I'm willing to protect him and and I want him to be dedicated to getting his health under control." So he withdrew. Representative Jim Jordan was the favorite of many in the caucus, so likely he's going to get that nomination. I don't think that um, he is officially the GOP nominee, but there's a Minnesota Tom Emmer who serves as the minority whip. He's reportedly interested in the speakership. However, President Donald Trump, we know, has endorsed Jim Jordan for that speakership. Like I said, we should get Jim Jordan in there if he's endorsed by Donald Trump. I thought that it'd be cool if Donald Trump was House Speaker, right? You think that Donald Trump would be a pretty cool House Speaker? I think that would be awesome. Give him 100 days. He'd go in there, make all the deals, negotiate. That's the what he does. Not like Joe Biden. Joe Biden, oh my gosh, could you he can, deal if deal a deck of cards if he wanted to. So speaking of bad deals that Joe Biden made, I also want to talk a little bit about the $6 billion to Iran. People will sit there and they'll say, "Oh, well, that was humanitarian aid. It was never supposed to go to Hamas. We didn't know it was going to go to Hamas." Blah blah blah. Anything you give to Iran is going to get into the hands of Hamas, okay? Because Hamas controls the people over in in the Middle East, okay? Because these are crazy extremist terrorists, and they have fun with terrorizing innocents, mainly Jewish people. Now, I do think that there might be some, peaceful Muslims and Arabs that are there who don't want to see the Jewish people dead. But those people will not speak up because they're terrified of Hamas. Okay. So 300 million people surrounding 8 million people, 8 million people being those who live in Israel. Um, so yeah, the numbers are there, 300 million people as opposed to 8 million people. Who's oppressed really? Let's just look at the numbers here. And I've gone into detail about how many times Israel has been attacked. They've never gone on the offensive. They're always on the defensive. It's just endless war since they've become a country in 1948. I'm a Zionist. If you're a Zionist, and if you want to know if you're a Zionist, the simple definition of Zionism is that you believe that Israel should exist as a country and they have the right to defend themselves. Israel is the only Jewish country, that's what it is. In Ezekiel, God says that I will gather my people and I will have them come and gather in one place after they were all separated after the destruction of Israel by the Roman Empire in 700 AD sometime. And then the only country, right? This is supernatural, and this is how you know God has a special place in his heart for Israel. The only country to go 2,000 years without existing, all of the Jewish people after the Roman Empire destroyed Israel, they spread out. Then they all came back, and it was like 2 million people strong at the time, maybe. They got up to 2 million. And they rebuilt Israel, and they're up to 8 million now. But that's the only country who was, they went 2,000 years without existing. And then after 2,000 years, they managed to build this country. That's supernatural. It's unheard of. No other country has done that. So we'll talk about that a little bit. You're listening to The Morning Buzz. If you're watching, go ahead and smash the like button. I'm going to be back in like 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Just look at the numbers. It's real simple, folks. Just look at the numbers. It's 1/6 of 1% is the amount of land that Israel has, and there's 8 million people in this itty bitty country. And then surrounding all of Israel is like 300 million people, Arabs and Muslims who likely want those Jewish people dead, simply because they're anti-Semites. So just look at the math. There have been multiple land offers in exchange for peace, and the Hamas terrorist organization refuses those offers every single time. They gave them Gaza in 2005. Nobody talks about that. They gave away Gaza. They said, here you go. Please leave us alone. Stop digging tunnels underneath Israel and popping up and stealing our teenagers and cutting their heads off. Please stop doing that. Here's Gaza. And they keep giving all of this land away, but it's never enough. And it never will be enough until all of the Jewish people are wiped out because they're simply anti-Semites. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, and we have so much to get to today. I was talking about DYLAN Mulvaney. We'll get to him in just a little bit, but right now, oh, smoke. It's cigars with Chuck Erickson. I look forward to this every Friday after
the county board meeting last night. Yes.
So big questions, and it's going to be tough.
Oh, about the county board meeting. Yes.
Buckle in.
Buckle up.
So first, let's talk about Randall Knapp. So Randall Knapp, why do you think that he's going to be a good? He ultimately was nominated by Catherine Metzger, who's the chairwoman, and she threw him up for election. It mainly, I think it was Bell and Byrne, Corey Byrne, Bell and Byrne. They voted him down.
Well, remember last month that Chuck Erickson had the wisdom to try to table their appointment until this month, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And, well, that motion failed. So at that meeting last night, the Democrats had 10 votes and we only had 9. Okay, remember that, okay? Because if Chuck Erickson had his way, there would have been a 9-9 tie at this meeting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't have that.
And you could have gotten the guy you really wanted in there.
Yeah.
But Randall Knapp, okay.
No, wait, it would have been 10-9.
10-9. The Republicans would have had the majority.
Yeah, we would have had more votes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would have worked out because we're one short. Yeah. But in any event, I mean, that didn't happen. So Randall Knapp was selected last night. Yes, Randy. Yes.
Randy. So what do you think of Randy?
I think he'll be fine. I mean, that's the chairperson's pick. I don't know a lot about Randy. I want you to know, Kat, that whether you like it or not, Elizabeth Johnston, Leah Klein, Val Lehman, they all listen to your show. Okay. I mean, they do. Whether you like it or not, they're listening right now. Okay. Or
Let me make sure my microphone's on
Crystal
and up.
Abel is listening to your show. So, you know, and they're all like, oh, you know, but they are listening to your show. You know, and so, you know, it is what it is. We put him on the board, and that's what the Republicans had a right to do.
Speaking of Elizabeth Johnson, I have had Chad Perkins. I did not know that he had been arrested. I did not know that this had happened to him, where he was stabbed 19 times. He was arrested in an act of self-defense. Later, the judge comes out himself and says, you were wronged by the justice system. You know, the judge came out and said that, and his neighbors came, testified on his behalf. But he was stabbed multiple times right out front of his house when he was taking out his dogs at 11:30 at night from this fellow. His name's James DeWitt. Okay, so I have been saying I think it's an inappropriate line of questioning coming from Elizabeth Johnson. She phrased the question like, some neighbors in Ironwood felt your temperament is bad, felt your temper, you don't have a good temperament to be a McLean County board member. Care to comment? I mean, that's essentially
well, I will say this. It is a political board, not a court. Okay. If this were a court, a lot of what Elizabeth Johnston was saying would have been kept out as hearsay, because it was what somebody told somebody who told somebody who told Elizabeth. Okay. I mean, so, and that's what she came to the political meeting with. But I mean, it's a political board. It's not a court. Okay. And, you know, I mean, to me, I look at it to some extent like, well, wait a second. When Crystal Abel was trying to be appointed, we went and got some of her Facebook posts and said, this is what she's saying about police officers, about defunding the police. And they came back and said, oh, you can't say what people post on Facebook. That doesn't make any difference. Oh, you can't say anything. And then they go into this meeting and they say, look what you said on Facebook. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's the exact.
Well, not even look what you said on Facebook. I mean, there's a judge who has come out and said that the justice system failed him. And had Elizabeth Johnson, gone out and even just typed in, that's what I did. I didn't know. I've had Chad in the studio before, and I had no idea that he was arrested. That's not typically what you ask people when you meet them. But I just typed in Chad Burke arrest, and it pops up. I mean, the Ring doorbell cam pops up where he's screaming in the street as he's being gutted like a pig, you know, in front of his house. And, you know, it didn't take much homework on my behalf to find out what happened.
Well, keep in mind, people have a right to self-defense, and I think that's the larger issue.
Yeah, I mean, that is the larger issue.
The larger issue. They want to take away your right to self-defense. The only person that can ever defend you is the police officer, who's doing the best job he can, but you're also trying to defund him too.
But
I mean, the same people who don't want you to have a right to self-defense, don't want you to have a gun, and also want to get rid of your police officers are the one criticizing you for doing anything. I mean, what are you going to come protect me, Elizabeth Johnston, when that person comes in my house at midnight? I mean, are you going to be there?
Yeah. Well, and it takes 30 to 40 minutes. We know that. I don't know what the call or the response time is here in Bloomington normal, but on average, it's 30 to 40 minutes for police to come out. But my thing is, you know, it wasn't even a Facebook post that she was questioning him on. It was, it's been settled in the courts. There's judge, there's, you know, why didn't she do her homework? And why? I don't know. My point is, I've got to ask you, why not, as a Republican, pipe up and say, hey, Elizabeth, stop this line of questioning, or question Chad, hey, is it okay if we continue this line of questioning?
Well, I mean, Jeff Tompkins did raise that at the meeting. I mean, is it okay to raise that line of questioning? I believe in a political body. Yeah, you can raise that line of questioning. I mean, we have the same right to do that to one of their nominees.
Okay.
I mean, don't lose sight of the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the bigger picture is, you know, when Crystal Abel comes up and says, you know what, I'm against the police, and we pull off one of our Facebook posts and said, hey, explain this. Okay. That's basically, hey, something happened in your life. explain this. Okay. The candidate's got to be able to explain it to some extent too.
Mhm.
And he did. He did a very good job of defending himself. What do you want me to do? I went to trial. The judge said I shouldn't have been charged. I mean,
Yeah.
what else? That's what he said. I mean, the candidate's got to be able to defend himself too. But in a political body, I mean, there's
Everything's fair game.
well,
But here we go.
but it is fair game. But what they don't like is when you do it back to them.
Yes.
I mean, when Crystal Abel came up, they said, you can't say those things. You can't talk about those things. You can't bring up those things. Okay. That's what they said to us.
Mhm.
Okay. And we said, yes, we can. Okay. So guys, you don't get it both ways. What the Democrats really want is we get to make up the rules for your candidates. And you don't, and you get no rules when we have our candidates up.
Mhm.
Okay. It's crap. And can I say crap on the radio?
Yes, you can. I say
Crap
it all
on
the
the
time.
radio.
Crap.
All right. But I mean, it's just the double standard that they engage in. I mean, we get to say whatever we want about your candidate, and you can't say whatever you want about our candidate. Well,
So my question now, Kathy Woods, why didn't any Republicans, Catherine Metzer, could you have asked her about, I looked up Catherine Woods on social media, just a quick social media post. The first thing on her social media is that she donates to Black trans lives, a donation to the far left organization. It's a Black trans coalition. Would that have been something that you would have liked to ask about?
I haven't seen that post, so I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what she said, but I mean, what you say on Facebook when you're running in a political campaign is fair game. It just is. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a conservative or a liberal. The way they want it is, it's not fair game when it's their candidate. Okay. Keep in mind, our process is like this. The chairman makes a recommendation. Okay. The county board votes on it. The chairman polls most of the members before the recommendation is made, because generally the chairman doesn't want to submit a name that isn't going to be approved. Okay. So the chairman submitted a name that thought had a consensus to get approved.
Mm.
Remember, whether we like it or not, you can only do so much when there's 9, 10 Democrats sitting across from you.
Mhm.
Okay. You have to you generally try to get the most electable conservative in. That's what you try to do. Okay. And that's what you try to do when there are 10 Democrats sitting across from you. Maybe you don't get the candidate you want all the time, but Randy's a good guy. So I think he'll be a good county board member.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of experience. He's got a good temperament for the job. I think he'll get along with everybody. He'll be able to work with the Democrats when you can work with them. I know they love to say they always have an outstretched hand to us.
Yeah.
That's such crap.
Well,
I mean, it's like, I even got lectured after the meeting. It's like, Chuck, if you hadn't voted this way, I could have ran a meeting remote. I mean, would tell you this, Leah, if you're listening, you wouldn't even be doing your text amendment regarding and everything else that we're doing in regards to piping CO2 gas into the ground. But for Chuck Erickson in 2018 saying, why doesn't the land use committee have the authority to propose text amendments? We didn't have the authority. The elected officials did not have the authority to do it themselves. You know who did? The unelected ZBA. Okay, they had the authority to do it, but the elected officials didn't have that authority.
You're talking about a carbon pipeline?
No. I'm talking about the land use committee has the authority to propose text amendments to our ordinances. Okay. So what happened was the land use committee addressed the CO2 issue. Okay. And they're trying to propose an ordinance to kind of cover what are going to be the rules and regulations if you come into McLean County to do this. Okay. These are going to be the rules and regulations. Okay. Well, back in 2018, the land use committee couldn't do that. The elected officials just wouldn't know what to do. But the ZBA, who really, I mean, there's a lot of good people on the ZBA, but they're not any more professional than what the land use committee is. Okay.
The elected people.
So why were unelected people allowed to propose a text amendment, but the elected people weren't? So I just basically pushed an amendment through that said land use committee can propose text amendments.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And that's what they did. So then basically I'm not on the land use committee anymore, but they proposed it. Okay. We got a memo from our state's attorney this week. Maybe it was last week. Can't remember. That basically said the county doesn't have the authority to say absolutely no on those things. We can propose rules and regulations, but state law preempts us from saying you can't have them. Okay. You may have some rules and rights to say where they may go, but you don't have the right to say absolutely not, period.
What?
Okay.
It's so wrong. And that's so wrong how the state has baked that into the cake and they've taken away county rights, like county government. Like, what's the point of you guys even being there?
Well, I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
in reality, county government is just a creature of the state government. I mean, it's just we only have the authority that the state government allows us to have. It's that way in every county. I mean, we only have the authority that the state government allows
Probably
us to
not
have.
in other states.
Well, I mean,
in other
you'd
states,
have
you
to
might
look in
actually.
in other states, they give more authority to their county governments because generally it's viewed that local government knows more about what ought to happen locally. All right. I mean, but not in Illinois.
So this Leah Klein thing, what did she say about the remote meeting?
No, it was something about they wanted to allow more remote attendance and I opposed it and I got it defeated at the county board. Okay. So what happened was it's kind of a side issue. The finance committee, the chairman couldn't be there because he had an emergency on the farm. He had to take care of it. Okay. Something was on fire and had to be taken care of. Okay. So he couldn't be there. Okay. Well, Val Lehman's the vice chair. Well, Val Lehman couldn't be there either because she had a prior engagement. Okay. Now she could have been there if we had allowed for remote attendance. Okay. But we don't allow for remote attendance of that. So that meant the senior member, which I prefer to say seasoned, Chuck Erickson of the finance committee had to chair that meeting. Okay. And it was basically Val just said to me, Chuck, I could have chaired it if you'd have let that amendment pass. I said, well, it didn't pass. What do you want me to do? Okay. I mean, it didn't pass. So last week I had to chair both the Justice Committee and the Finance Committee meeting. So that's okay. The world went on. Nobody did, it's like, oh my God, Chuck Erickson. Oh, that's all the humanity. It all went on. Okay.
It all went on. Well, we have to take a quick break. I've got to take a quick break, but we're doing cigars with Chuck Erickson, and we are going to be talking about the county board meeting last night. Randy Knapp is now the county board District 5 member. So he's in the District 5. He's serving you alongside Elizabeth Johnston. We've got more to chat about.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Elizabeth. I know she's listening. I know you're listening, Elizabeth. And I thought your line of questioning was very inappropriate. I'll be back. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Chuck Erickson right across the way. We are smoke-filled room.
Yeah, cigars with Chuck Erickson.
But we're going to be transparent.
Yeah.
Ben Matthews, he did go and he spoke publicly, and I've got some of his comments here, which are just wild. Talking about David Paul Blumenshine spearheaded the Stop the Steal trip to Washington, D.C., January 6th, with a bus full of our neighbors to the nation's capital in support of the former president's claim that the election had been stolen. Of course, they bring this up. Blumenshine does not apologize for his participation, nor acknowledge the reality of what occurred that day. And he continues to spout various claims that on a conservative radio station, that's us, which sponsored the trip. Ben, come on. You at least could have given us a plug. Damn it. He didn't even say City's 92.9.
City's 92.9. Come on.
Damn it. Come on, Ben. Give us a plug. We'd love the extra promotion. But your thoughts, Chuck, on this, I'm curious about some other comments he had about, power. He said that it shouldn't be about power.
Well,
And
Democrats always say it shouldn't be about power when they're not in power. Now, if Ben Matthews really wanted to be a consistent guy, he'd be criticizing the Democrats down in Springfield. But they're okay with power plays down there. Okay, I mean, and they're perfectly fine with a power play when the power play works in their advantage. Okay,
mhm.
I mean, but Ben knows this, and he's trying to hide this issue. He knows politics is about power.
Yeah.
That's what politics is about. Okay.
Mhm.
It's about power and enacting your agenda and and your values and your beliefs. That's what politics has
As a
always
representative.
been about.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It never changed. Okay. Now they come across as, oh, we're holier than thou. We want everybody. We want this and we want you to have that. No, you don't. I mean, if they were really consistent in their concerns, they would be launching every day a criticism of Springfield
Mhm.
and what the Democrat majority, super majority does down there. They basically tell other people to just go sit in the corner and shut up. We're going to do what we want to do. They're not reaching across the aisle. They're not trying to listen to other views. So if he's really consistent, if he really wanted to be consistent, Ben, Leah, Elizabeth, if you really wanted to be consistent, okay,
Mhm.
where do you why don't you come to a county board meeting and criticize the Democrats down in Springfield? You won't do it.
Mhm.
Why? That's the question.
Well, and you know what really made me kind of upset really about Ben Matthews' comments here about power, as if it would be some sort of power trip to nominate somebody like a Chad Burke or a David Paul Blumenshine. And he said, "We see you. We see all of you. You can stop performing for your crowds or cliques and cheers and start representing all of your
What was he
constituents."
doing? Wasn't he performing for his crowd at that meeting?
Yes.
That's exactly what he was doing. I mean, hey, dude, you were performing too.
We understand, and then he goes on, he goes, "We understand your solid grip on power is fading, but your job here is not to grab for more power, but to govern." That's what he says. And here's the thing. I think Elizabeth Johnson went on a bit of a power trip, and Leah Klein went on a bit of a power trip when they decided to interrogate the Republican applicants.
But we
Like,
still have the right to, I mean, they set the precedent. Remember that. When they do that stuff, they set a precedent. Okay.
yeah.
And the precedent now is we can go on our interrogations of their nominees
Hmm.
the next time they come up. Okay. Because you guys set
And
the
I would have loved to see that.
you guys set the precedent.
Via Kathy Woods.
Okay.
She was their nominee, 100%.
Well, no,
She had to have been.
I mean, I don't know that she was their nominee. It's just that she got along with some of them. But when Crystal Abel came up, we interrogated her, and they, oh, that's off limits. You can't interrogate her. Okay, it's the same old thing. We don't have the right to interrogate their nominees, but they have the right to interrogate our nominees. I just want to say it is a political body. If you're seeking an appointment to a county board, people have a right to ask you questions. Where do they come from, the left or they come from the right? I mean, and you as the candidate have to be prepared to defend yourself. It's just the way it is. Okay, you're running for a political office. I mean, I wish politics were not that way. I mean, sometimes it's all about who can throw more mud at the other guy, But I mean, and try to drive
Well, that's what
drive up their negatives.
My hope
Drive up
was
their negatives.
during that meeting, it would have been great to see, I guess the antithesis or like the opposite happen, where Republicans were like, "Hey, stop the interrogating right now," because they did that to you guys when Crystal Abel came before you guys. It would have been great to
Well,
see.
I take more of the view. I get what you're saying, Kat, but I take more of the view that, listen, if you guys are going to do it, then don't complain when I do it.
Yeah.
Don't complain when I do it.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll let you guys do it, but don't complain when I do it.
Yeah.
You have no right to complain.
Mhm.
No right. And if I want to come in there and said, X told me that Y told me that Z told me, which is what they did, that you were not a nice person on someone's porch. Okay. I get to say that now. I think it's crazy to do that type of stuff because it's really hearsay on top of hearsay on top of hearsay. But I mean, you know what? You set the rules by the way you did your questioning this round. Okay.
Mhm.
We get to do the same thing to your people.
We're going to come back for our radio friends. You're listening to Cities 92.9.
Got to play by your rules. We'll do it.
Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And Chuck Garrison right across the way. And yes, folks, it's Friday the 13th. I do want to, say warning, warning, warning. There is supposed to be some sort of globalist jihad. I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't warn you. Hey, be on the lookout. Don't go to highly populated areas. Don't do that today. There's Hamas terrorists calling for the globe to do a globalist jihadist day. So there could be a lot of civil unrest, especially in dense populated areas. So stay away.
Yeah, Hamas terrorists are animals. I mean, let's just call them what they are. Okay, they're animals. They're ruthless animals. Okay, and I always love it when they go out and blow up somebody, and then they try to come out the next day with a moral argument. I mean, there's nothing moral about blowing up someone. Even if you don't like what Israel's doing, you don't have a right to behead people and kill children and do et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You don't get a moral right for that. Even if you don't like what your opponent is doing, you don't get that right. And for some leftists to not be able to make that distinction, just hilarious to me.
Yeah, well, and
hilarious. I mean,
Israel isn't even occupying. There is no oppression on Israel's behalf. They have given, it's documented, land offer after land offer after land offer in exchange for peace.
Well, the hypocritical thing in the Arab world is that, if you're really that worried about the Palestinians, and why isn't, Iran pouring money into helping their home issues and other issues? No, they don't want to take care of them. If you think they're so badly, why don't you invite them into your own country? They don't. No, we're just going to let them stay there and blow you up. It's ridiculous.
Well, you actually went to Israel.
I've been to Israel twice.
You've been to Israel twice. I have not made it out to Israel. I want to go. Probably not in the next couple of years.
They generally don't take you over by the Gaza Strip. I mean, you generally don't go. That's not part of the tour. Okay. I mean, you generally go to the Sea of Galilee and Jerusalem. and the Dead Sea. And you go to you land in Tel Aviv because that's the only airport there anyway. And then they bus you to Jerusalem or the Sea of Galilee or the northern part, where generally it's more secure because the Israelis have complete control over it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Where they don't have complete control over Gaza.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, there's people that live in that area that are Israelis that choose to stay home. They
offered Gaza up in 2005.
Yeah,
it's not even really about Gaza anymore. It's just constantly trying to get more and more land. That's what it is. It's
they want the elimination of the Jewish state. That's what they want. They want to eliminate the Jewish state. Okay, and sorry, we're not going to let you. It's not going to happen.
Yes,
okay?
Those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse it will be cursed.
And by the way, they are the only democracy in that area, aren't they? Yeah, I thought you guys were for democracy. Oh, we're not for democracy when it's not what the type of democracy we want.
Speaking of far leftists, here is Ben Matthews at the county board meeting last night. We love to come in studio. We like to talk about the county board meeting. This is a very far leftist. He's with the Illinois Teachers Union. Ben Matthews, he made public comment yesterday, and I wanted to share this with us because he does mention Cities 92.9. He doesn't mention us by name, and come on, Ben, you could have given us a plug. You could have just said Cities 92.9 and promote us a little bit for some free advertising, but it's fine, Ben. I'll forgive you. He mentions a conservative radio station and, how we hosted a bus trip to the Stop the Steal rally. Here is Ben Matthews. Here we go.
Nor acknowledge the reality of what occurred that day. And he continues to spout various spurious claims on the conservative radio station, which
Cities
sponsors the trip.
92.9.
Another applicant, Chad Burke, said the comments and conspiracy theories that he shared in a recent interview with that same radio station were based on him, quote, going off of what was said on the radio. And when you hear what is on the radio, you believe what's on the radio. And
No. Okay, so first of all, I feel like I have to pipe in here just a quick second. So the Stop the Steal rally, right? We hosted that. David Paul Blumenshine was there on the scene and calling in and discussing what he saw. So he was there. Ben Matthews was not there. Of course, you're going to believe somebody on the radio who is there doing some live reporting or doing some reporting about where he was and what he saw.
Well, I think the bigger issue is that nobody on that bus trip was ever near the Capitol, nor were they arrested, okay? And they were merely exercising their First Amendment right to have an opinion, okay?
Mhm.
You have a right to disagree with their opinion, okay, and think it's completely wrong. But nobody was arrested on that trip, and they weren't even close. They weren't even near the Capitol.
They were at a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, they weren't even near it. So I mean,
By the time people were so-called trespassing, right? And I don't know how you get charged
I
with
will say
trespassing.
about Ben Matthews is he's a very shrewd political activist. Okay, and so when we Republicans take someone on like Ben Matthews, we have to be shrewd and smart too. I mean, don't underestimate him. He's good at what he does. Okay.
Mhm.
He's very good at it.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And, I think sometimes
So-
Republicans want to crank up another song of Kumbaya and think if we just reach across and be nice to him, well, I mean, I'm not opposed to being nice to him, but understand he's trying to beat you. Okay. So you got to beat him. I mean,
Yeah.
that's his goal.
Well,
I
and
mean,
let's take a listen more to what he says about power. Here we go.
End quote. Mr. Burke made it clear he believes January 6th was not an insurrection, not even a riot, but, quote, just an event staged by the government, and he was glad that Blumenshine led a trip to go support the former president in his false claims of election fraud. These are not the people we need in positions of leadership, power, or influence. And regardless of who is recommended tonight by the Republican chair on the board, we should be clear this is not the fringe of the Republican Party. Mr. Blumenshine is in a leadership position with the party, and that radio station is a significant part of the party's work. As a Democrat, I want to see Democrats elected because their values align most closely with mine. But as a resident, I want to be represented by my elected officials. I want them to listen, engage, consider various views, and to take seriously their responsibility of representing their constituents, all of their constituents, regardless of party affiliation. To the chair of the board, please recommend someone who can and will carry out that responsibility with integrity. To the Republicans on the board, we see you. We all see you. You can stop performing for your crowd for clicks and cheers and start representing.
well,
I've got my soundboard out and I'm hitting buttons. I've got my small little violin, Crimea River, Ben Matthews. So he talks about power and he says that you guys are losing your Republican stronghold or whatever. And then he says, this shouldn't be about power. It should be about the good for the county. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I mean, it's always funny when they speak because it's always they're the ones that listen to everybody. They're the ones that take in the concerns of all their constituents. Okay. It's the Republicans that only are on this ideological pursuit. Okay. But they never are. They're just pure, and
They're so
white and they just want to be, they just all want to sing and get along. And it's nonsense.
It's nonsense.
Ben Matthews, you want to defeat Republicans. Why don't you just say it? And you really don't care what their views are.
And here's
Okay. You just want to beat us. Okay. Just say it what it is.
Here's what I would have loved to see happen. Catherine Metzger nominating either Chad Burke or David Paul Blumenshine to send a message that, listen, we're done working across the aisle. Yes, we understand that Randall Knapp might be a great candidate. We're done working across the aisle. We're not going to calculate our nomination based off of what you might feel is the best option because you never consider our feelings about who would be the best option, especially when they consider or when they threw up Crystal Abel for that appointment chip. Right? They didn't consider what the Republicans, that she's far left. Right. She's a far left political activist who is this ideologue. Like
Yeah, they weren't looking for the consensus maker then.
No.
Okay.
Yes,
but,
they were not making the calculations were not considered when they brought forward Crystal Abel as a nominee for that appointment, to fill that appointment. They were not considering the Republicans at all in their calculations in nominating her to try to fill that vacancy. So why in the world would Catherine Metzger come out and say, yeah, that's how that was part of my calculations. I want to find somebody that's best for both the Republicans and the Democrats. And
I remember it was the police union that came out strongly. I mean, they were livid about Crystal Abel's applying for that position. It was the FOP of the McLean County sheriff's deputies that came out. They were livid about her being being appointed to that position. They were not. I mean, their president came and spoke to us at that meeting. Okay, they didn't want someone who was so anti-police, so anti-law enforcement sitting on that board. Okay. So don't sit there and tell me that that was, hey, you know, that was the consensus choice. I mean, and you know, it's just like, come on, Ben, let's just be honest with people. You want to win, we want to win. Okay. Yes, every elected representative should listen to all the constituents' views, even from on the left and on the right. They should listen to everybody because you represent everybody. But ultimately, there are certain people that get you elected, okay? And stop pretending like if you got elected, Ben, you wouldn't enact a hard left agenda. You would. I know you're going to go to the county board meeting and oh, we would never do that. You know, we're the sweetest people.
We're the sweetest.
I mean, we just want to sing Kumbaya. Okay. I mean, you don't. You want to beat us too. Stop it. Stop acting like you don't.
I know. I'm telling you, Chuck. So we have got to take a quick break. Ben Matthews, please cry me a river. Okay, we will be back. And we've got to wrap up some of the show. Well, we've got a couple more segments. I do want to get to a couple of other things, specifically your state representative run. You're running in the 88th. Regan Deering is also in that race. We're going to talk about that, how that's going, and your campaign efforts. That's next on The Buzz. chat, I wouldn't call Dylan Mulvaney a man. I'd call him a male. Yes, Dylan Mulvaney winning the Woman of the Year award just after being a woman for a year and some change. Tell me how that works out. The patriarchy strikes again. Yes, we talked about that earlier in the show. We've talked about a lot. Told you a little bit about Petro Pete. Stop Petro Pete. These climate alarmists, these activists, they're really cult members. If or prophets. I call them climate prophets. They chased Pete Buttigieg out of an event because there's like some oil transport projects that are going through and they're being reviewed right now and they want to shut those projects down. And they were chasing. I love when progressives eat their own. I think it's it's the funniest thing. We also talked about no cash bail. How that's a problem. There was a woman who was deemed a moderate risk after beating a man with a metal pole, and then she was released without bail. And then she goes out, beats another person with a metal pole, and she actually winds up killing this woman who was a mother of 8 children. So yeah, anytime the left says that no cash bail is a good thing and that it's going to end racism, don't believe them. They're gaslighting you. That's not true. If you promote it, you're just stupid, or you're ignorant, or you're evil. You're promoting evil, and it's not jaywalkers just getting out. It's not, just so that way we can prevent the jaywalker from having to post this huge amount of money to get out of jail. It's not that. It's not the mom stealing the bread for the kids, and she has to post bail. Those people weren't posting bail. Those people were never had to pay bail. They were released anyway. All right. Well, I have got to get Chuck Erickson in here. This is Cigars with Chuck Erickson, the 8 o'clock hour. Real quick, we've got to talk about your state representative run. So how is that going? What are you hearing out on the campaign trail? What are people most concerned about when it comes to the state of Illinois and in the district of the 88th?
Well, a lot of people ask, why would you even run in Illinois? It's like, I'm trying to get out. People will tell you that. I mean, I'm trying to get out. That's what they say. I'm like, you still got to fight for it. I mean, this is our home. I mean, I was born and raised in Illinois. I mean, why would I just give it to them? I have a problem with that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have a friend who did leave Illinois, said he couldn't take it anymore. I mean, it's just like he cited me the biblical version of what's that thing? You dust the, dirt off your sandals and move on. Okay. I mean, I'm not ready to do that yet. I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and go down to Springfield and fight. So, I believe that I don't believe it. It's just a fact in this campaign. I have a proven record of being a conservative. Okay. I don't have to campaign as one. I have a record of being one. Okay. For 12 years, I've served on the county board, and I have voted as a conservative. Yeah, you might find one vote here or there, I suppose you might, but I've always been an advocate for conservative values. When I was chair of the Republican Party, I was an advocate for conservative candidates. My goal is always to get conservative candidates elected. When I was the chairperson, that's what I did. I do want to give a shout out to Chris Graham in Gulf Shores, Alabama. There you go, Chris.
Go, Chris. Go, Chris.
It is what it is. I don't understand why there's an issue. Here's a person who says they're a conservative and has a record of one. And here's a person who really has no record. Because the hardest candidate to run against is the person that has no record, because they can claim to be anything they want, and they can assert they're anything they want to be. And you can't challenge it because there's no voting record.
Yeah.
They've never voted on anything. I mean, it's one thing to stand up in a room and say, hey, I'm going to be the most conservative person in the room. It's a whole nother thing to go into that public body and maintain that value and vote that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Because people sometimes they get weak-kneed when they walk in there.
Yeah. I totally understand the constituents who say, you're running. You're running. Why would you be running? And that's one thing I also wanted to ask you here on the other side. We've got to take a quick break. I've got Chad Burke. He's in the comment section. He talks a little bit about, PTSD, and the line of questioning. I also wanted to ask, what with this kind of, questioning, the line of questioning, the hearsay, is there a fear that people will not want to be a part of the process anymore? I mean, me, I would never even consider applying to be a part of any kind of government role or process, or to be a part of it, because it's not it's not in my best
But keep in
interest.
mind, there's people that need to be the elected officials. There's people that need to be the activists. Sometimes the activists can't be the elected officials, but the world needs the activists to be watching the elected officials.
Mhm.
Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, that's what you need. You need the activists.
Let's unpack it on the other side.
Okay.
This is Cities 92.9. So I'm going to just read here. Chad Berkey says the concerning property tax I do want to get into that. The property tax increase.
What? I'm sorry.
The property tax increase. So
Yeah,
the
we'll talk about
concerning
that.
the property tax increase, and that they're calling for what we talked about last night in the meeting. A question I wanted to ask Brad, because of the meeting, I didn't get you.
There is no, I'll explain that. I mean, the argument's a little because the county isn't raising its tax rate.
Mhm.
Okay. What is happening is the state says you have to assess these properties at higher values. Okay. Because of our equalization factors and everything else. So people's property values went up. I mean, it's still the same rate. It's kind of like just like a tithe. I mean, if you make 200,000, you're only going to pay 20. If you make 100,000, you only pay 10. Okay. But what has happened is the state has said your wealth has gone up because your property value has gone up. All right. Well, we kept the rate the same. So they're just going to pay more because the value of their property went up.
Oh, okay.
That's what's going on. There is no increase in the rate.
In the rate.
But but their argument basically is, I think of the people that came there saying, well, yeah, XYZ's house over in that side of town went up in value, but my house isn't going up in value, but I got to pay more.
Oh.
Okay. I mean, and so what they're
It's a
really
state
saying is
thing.
I should not have had the property value increase that you say I have. Okay. And because you're putting it on me, but the state is saying, here's the formula you use. That's what it's going to be. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that well.
So
but
and this is a question posted in the comment section, can we appeal the state multiplier?
You would have to have a different way of attacking that in state government, because, to some extent, it is fair that if your property is going up in value, you should pay more in taxes than someone whose property did not go up in value, right? I mean, I know people are anti-tax, but you still, I mean, property, as long as the rate remains flat, to me, it's like the tithe. I mean, if your property, if you earn more income, you pay more tithe.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Okay. You pay more tithe. That's the expectation. Okay. If God blesses you, you pay more. I think the better argument from their perspective is this equalized assessed value is not being fair because my house isn't really going up in value.
Could the county have dropped the tax locally in order to combat?
No, what the county did, okay, and what the county's doing, this is where if you want to attack it, that's where you should attack it, is that because we're getting more money in because of increased valuation on property values, the budget's going up. We're not raising your taxes, our budget's increasing. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Okay, I don't know if I said that very well, but I mean, where are we getting the income? The income's coming from the increase in your property value. That's why we're bringing in more taxes.
So why does the budget have to go up?
Well, that's the question that politicians have to answer. Okay. I mean, there could be a reason because inflation's going up. We have employees that are demanding more money. We have sheriff's deputies that aren't getting paid very well. Okay. And they won't do the job because we bastardized them for so long that we're going to have to start paying them more. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So some of that problem is that I don't know if I'm that's really what's going on. I'll try to explain that if I can. I mean,
Yeah, we only have a couple of minutes, but I
Okay.
am going
does that-
to.
I hope I explained that well.
I totally did not even. I messed up. I should have been talking about the taxing because I did have it on my list to talk about, but we'll talk about it and then
Okay.
we'll hit it a little bit here. So stay tuned. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. We've only got about a minute left, and I totally didn't even hit the tax issue. So the tax rate is staying the same.
Yes, the McLean County tax rate is staying the same as last year. What is happening is the state has a formula that says, you have if your house is going up in value, then we assess your tax rate at a higher rate. So if your house is $200,000 now and it was only $100,000 last year, the tax rate is 10%. I'm making these numbers up. Okay. Then you pay 10,000, you pay 10% of 100,000, that's 10,000. But if your house went up in value to 200,000, the state comes along and says, no, you pay 20. Well, what local government is doing is they're taking that extra 10 and they're spending it. I mean, that's what we're doing it. I mean, that's your issue.
Can we appeal the state multiplier? So the issue with the state, they say that, as the property tax increases.
You could. I mean, you could sit there and ask your state legislator to change the formula, but I mean, there does have to be some formula to assess property values. I mean, every state has property taxes. I'm pretty sure they don't. Some states
So
don't have income taxes.
the reason why the local tax rate did not drop, it's staying the same. It didn't increase, but it's staying the same. You're going to be paying more because your property and assessed value.
Yes, and what the people that are saying is saying, wait a minute, your property went up in value, but my property didn't go up in value. I'm getting hit with this penalty of property values,
but you can't,
when mine didn't go up in value. That's what they're really saying. And so why should I have to pay more tax?
You can't drop the local tax because we have we have increased spending.
Well, you could. I mean, if you could figure out a way to get the 20 members of the county board to cut the budget enough that you kept it at the same, people were paying the same amount as last year, I don't know that that's practical. I think the more practical thing is, are there spots in the budget you could cut to try to keep your taxes down lower? But the rate did not go up. McLean County did not raise the rate.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the state multiplier problem.
Yeah, it's a state. Yeah. And George Wynn explained that at the county board meeting.
Got it.
Actually, go ahead.
We have to go. But I'm so glad that you came in studio. I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you.